We need to three. I speak to him.
Yes.
Because I can't see.
Right, I'll call to order the Town of Mount Desert Planning Board meeting for March 8th, 2023. Welcome aboard. Can we go back to the first screen so I can see everybody?
Also, if there's anyone in the room that has not signed in, can you do that now, please? I just need to be able to read it. I can't say that.
You're really.
Okay, well, again, welcome aboard. We're here for the planning board tonight. We've got a hybrid meeting here, obviously. We've got public in attendance in the meeting room here on C Street, and then we've got everybody online. And if you bear with me, I'm going to give my Zoom spiel first. So first thing everybody needs to do online is please sign in your name in the chat. Just we have record of everybody who's here online, and then a couple just Zoom things, and I'm sure we're all familiar with Zoom now, but first off, if you do speak on Zoom, just please identify yourself when you're speaking. And just where we have so many people online tonight, if you can, there's the little raise your hand icon on the bottom, and Kim and I will keep an eagle eye out for everybody wanting to talk tonight online, and we'll do our best to get to you. We've got so many people online that we're going to be flipping between multiple gallery screens. So just bear with us there, but I'm sure we'll be sure to let everybody talk who wants to. And what else? What other? Keep yourself on mute. If we've got, I don't know how many people we have online right now, but if we've got a bunch of unmuted people online, it's really difficult to just conduct the hearing. So stay on mute until you talk. I think that's it. And I'll make introductions up.
The hand raising.
Yep, I mentioned the hand raising thing, signing in on chat, stay on mute.
Oh, and don't have chat, or did you say this?
Yeah,
Don't have discussions on.
Absolutely, and Meredith just reminded me, please don't use chat as side discussion about projects. Just that, need to communicate anything, just please raise your hand and we'll let you be heard. With that,
I don't see the little hand raising thing if you want to talk. Where is it?
So it should be down on the bottom of your screen, right, Kim?
Yeah.
Is it under reactions, Charlene?
I don't know, maybe.
Charlene, click on reactions and it'll be up. It'll say raise your hand.
And worst case, just stay on mute and raise your hand. And we'll get to you. So with that, I'll make introductions tonight. I'm William Hanley. I'm planning board chair. We've got Meredith Randolph with us tonight. We've got Tracy Loftus Keller with us tonight. And then online, we've got Dave Ashmore. Dave, there you are. And is Gloria online? No. Anybody see Gloria? No. Negative. So we've got 4 full-time voting members of the planning board tonight. And let's dive into it.
Okay, you got a public hearing at 6:05.
And I have a public hearing at 6:05 and it's
6:04.
And it's 6:04.
Approve minutes.
Yes, and we can approve minutes. I believe we have minutes from the 22nd.
Yeah.
Thanks.
February what?
22nd.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 22nd.
Tracy Keller, I second that.
All right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
myself, William Hanley, aye. All right. Is it 6:05?
Yep.
Would it make it easier if you moved Dave's head over there so we can keep
I'm
track
not
of him?
moving. I don't know how to run this that great, so I'm not moving.
Okay.
Right now, it's working.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the far left upper corner. I think we're gonna do it.
That's fine.
I just don't want to mess
Fine,
anything up.
I'm fine. I didn't mean to scare you. Didn't scare you.
Item 3 on the agenda tonight, we have a public hearing at 6:05. And that's the land use zoning and land use map amendments for the 2023 annual town meeting on May 2nd, 2023. And Noel, I believe that's why you're
This was
here.
published, by the way,
It was published and,
in the newspapers. I had to put it in the Bangor Daily,
yeah,
to get the accurate, time frame. So it was put in on February 21st and February 23rd newspaper, Mount Desert Islander and the Ellsworth American.
great.
Thank you. Noel Musson, planning consultant for the town. This public hearing is really to discuss the last Uzo related land use amendment that the planning board needs to vote on. We discussed this at the last meeting, but it's an amendment that poses to change how height limitations are calculated in the shoreline zone, where the shoreline zone and the floodplain start to intersect. And the idea is to be more consistent with current state rules and help provide some flexibility for those areas where floodplain standards require buildings to be higher to get out of the flood zone, but the shoreline zoning standards require buildings to be lower. And it just changes not the height limitation, but how you measure height. So that's this proposal. Happy to answer questions, so we still need the board to vote on it.
Last time you just said that the town attorney needed to review it.
The town attorney's already looked at it and
But the reason why we didn't vote on it last
oh,
time.
no, it's because it hadn't been introduced to you even before that. We had just gotten language from the state last time.
Oh,
We hadn't had a chance to talk about it at all, and we had just written it, so we didn't want to have you vote on it before people had a chance to even look at it.
This is the one we're trying to avoid the situation where we have to pancake buildings, right? And primarily the E zone.
Yeah,
You're tied to the pre-existing ridge height, but to get out of the floodplain, you gotta lift the building. And if you can't move the top and you're moving the bottom, that doesn't leave much
Right.
left for your building.
yes, and really it's we're just adopting the state's current law. It's a shoreline zoning amendment that they made, so it would just be adopting their language into our ordinance to be consistent with that, and they recognize that inherent conflict between, the floodplain standards and the shoreline standards. And that's
And
what
we ran into that with the town project in Seal Harbor.
Yeah, what was it, Kim, over in Otter Creek, is that?
Dodge Point,
Yeah,
Mhm.
so again, it doesn't change how, the height limitation, it just changes how you measure height
Mhm.
only in those situations.
We're recommending this to the warrant committee. Can I make a motion to recommend, or do we need to discuss it?
but
So I think you want to see if there's any public comment.
Absolutely.
Public meeting and then
Yeah.
vote on it.
So let's start with that. So is there any public comment on the proposed warrant article? As worded? Not seeing any hands up. Not
I've
seeing
raised my
any.
hand.
Jamie's
Oh.
got his hand up.
All right, where are we?
Oh, there we go.
Perhaps you
Right.
don't see me because I have to be making noise for it to show up on the camera.
Yes, make some noise.
I will make a little bit of noise. Just curious in terms of the actual calculation, Noel, like what What has been changed and, you know, sort of what is it practically speaking? I haven't had a chance to review the
Yeah.
language itself. I
And just
apologize.
a protocol thing, remember if you're talking, introduce yourself so everybody knows who you
Sorry,
are.
Jamie Hancock, summer resident, Northeast Harbor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in currently the way that you measure height in the ordinance is from it's the mean original grade on the downhill side of the structure. And the way that this would amend it is, this is for, it really applies only to structures that are already in existence, so it's under the non-conforming section. And then the new provision allows for the height to be measured, let's see, I'm just gonna read that section. It's the vertical distance between the bottom of the sill of the structure to the highest point of the structure, excluding chimneys, steeples, and antennas and other higher things, which is also excluded in the previous version. So in those situations where you're in a special flood hazard area, you measure height from the bottom of the sill and not from the original grade.
Okay, so you're in essence, you're just measuring the height of the building itself as opposed to the height from the dirt.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mhm. Any other questions from the public? Not seeing any hands online or in the room. All right, then I'll close the public discussion, and I think Tracy was thinking about making a motion.
I was gonna make a motion to recommend this to the warrant committee for their approval, and it'll be at the town meeting on May 2nd or 3rd.
Second.
Yes.
2nd, May 2nd.
Dave Ashmore, second.
Got it. All right, all those in favor, Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Meredith,
Randolph, I.
myself, William Manley, aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. All right. Let's keep going. Item 4 tonight, we have subdivision approval applications. This is under section 4.1, pre-application procedures for subdivisions, sketch plan. And item 4A tonight is subdivision 001 2023. The owner name is James Marco Glisi Revocable Trust. Agent is Jeff Tunison from Haley Ward. Location is off Quarry's Edge Road in Mount Desert. Tax map 8 lot 134-003-001. Zoning district is rural woodland 3, and the purpose is modifications to a previously approved and recorded subdivision. It's amendment number 1 of the 3.02 acre subdivision, file 45, number 61, recorded October 25th, 2018, and amendment number 2, file 48, number 54, recorded March 10th, 2021. We had a site visit at 4:45 today, and was this one?
It was advertised in the newspaper, but it didn't require it, but I
Okay.
just advertised it.
All right, and let's see, Tracy, Meredith and I attended the site visit, and maybe Tracy could report on the site visit observations.
So, the Quarry's Edge Road is a dirt road, and it was rather wet and snowy still when we arrived, and Mr. Tennyson took us a walk down the length of the road just to see some survey markings, which delineated where the boundaries, the end boundaries of the subdivision is, and then he showed us where the interior dividing line between the two lots is being moved, and he explained that the rationale for that is that there's quite a lot of wetlands there, and to make two lots that have the appropriate amount of acreage so they can be built upon, had to move the line over to make enough buildable land that you could actually put a house on in that area.
Meredith, anything else?
It was just moving up a line within the subdivision.
Yeah, that the
So
boundary's not
there's no
changing, there is
change.
just an internal line kind of laterally.
And so he's actually losing a lot.
Aren't you creating a new law?
Well, the lot to the west.
Yeah, it's a new law.
Mhm.
It-
But-
It was already. It was already, land of Marco Bleasy.
It was within the subdivision. He's changing the internal lot line to make 3 lots into 2 lots.
So Jeff, we'll turn it over to you.
All right.
There.
Yep, Tennyson Land Surveyor with Haley Ward. Did give a good synopsis of what's going on. My client would like to amend an existing subdivision. In which, when we're doing this, we're gonna be moving one lot line. Because of the moving of the lot line, we have to go through amended subdivision approval. As you can tell on the map, we mapped wetlands, and I've described the acreage of buildable area on both of the lots. We're not proposing to build any roads, we're proposing to use existing Quarry's Edge Road. And we also have 2 test pits on each lot. Now, I will say that this is like kind of like an estate planning type of event for my client. Right now, there's no desire or plan on building on the lots. It's Mr. Marco Bleasy is going to convey the parcels to his kids. And he wants to get this in order. Do you have any questions?
It kind of looks like on the site, like there were 4 lots.
They were conveyances to Marco Bleasy through different deeds.
But it was 4 lots, and you're now making 2 lots, or you did 3 lots that you're making into 2 lots.
We are making 2 lots.
Yes. But what's in the original subdivision plan? Is that 4 lots or 3 lots? There's dashed lines, which I assume, the dashed lines are the original lot lines, right? Or the, shoot, it was, dashed later.
To the east on the proposed 3-acre lot, that was lot 3A of the original subdivision. The remaining land was. Those were conveyances to Mr. Marco Bleasy through deeds that was not part of the subdivision. It was like, in the deed, it said first lot, second lot, third lot. Of conveyances.
So where was the edge of the original subdivision? You're saying second lot, first lot, and third lot weren't in a subdivision. They have to be a subdivision by their description.
I can provide you with the original subdivision plan, so you can see what the original subdivision was. I didn't provide that to begin.
You didn't provide it, you had it.
Second,
Yes.
Yeah. first, third, so that makes it 4 lots. I thought we were taking 3 lots and making them 2 lots, but it looks like it's making these 3 lots.
These 3 are coming together and this
Yeah,
one's getting.
It's
bigger.
clear enough what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's just difficult to figure out what it
Mhm.
was.
I can provide you with the original subdivision plan,
Yeah,
so you have clarity.
just,
Because it is-
all that you're asking for is a change to the original subdivision. So it's good to know what the actual,
Yes,
you know,
we're
we
changing
can see
it.
what you've got, but
Yeah.
it's what the change is. Needs to be clarified. Is Kim just gone to go get it?
She has.
Yeah.
But I didn't make copies for you.
Well, we're at sketch plan tonight. Sketch plan, the sketch plan phase of the subdivision review application. Process is just a kind of an informational stage where the project is and project scope is generally discussed. And if, you know, anyone in the public cares to comment on the project, this is the time to ask questions. And if there is anybody in the public who has any questions for the applicant, now's the time.
Of course, one person owns all of this
Yeah.
and he's changing a lot line within all of this. It doesn't really concern anybody else, but.
Yeah, so it's really an internalized change to a pre-existing subdivision.
This is amendment 1.
It's okay, I'm fine.
Okay.
And then this is amendment 2. And these merged, and then this piece was cut out from here. That you guys reviewed and approved. And so now what he's proposing here is he's.
What's the most,
This is yeah, this is amendment number 2.
okay, so this is,
2021.
And then this is what you're looking at, but actually it's like this. And
it's from
this
this,
is, yes, over, yep.
I have a plan with the previous.
well, this has first lot. Goes off lot 1. Lot 3.
Can I get you to sign in?
I think this has got more than another
Yeah,
another subdivision involved. This.
No,
No,
it's when it's in a deed, just because it says first lot doesn't mean that it's a subdivision. There'll be, lots of times in deeds, they'll differentiate parcels
Okay,
that were conveyed to an individual. And in the deed, sometimes it's confusing where each parcel is, so on the plan, surveyors will note that it's first lot, second lot, or third lot.
so the edge of the subdivision we're discussing is there.
yeah, it doesn't show all of the lot. To the west.
So you're saying that the edge of the subdivision, this was the submitted subdivision,
Yes, it was.
and so this is the end of it.
For 16. No,
Because that says first lot and this is the third.
no,
Lot one.
it goes further down, which is this, it goes down.
What you're
further
doing
down.
now.
Well, this is an amended subdivision, and oftentimes in amended subdivisions, they don't show the whole parcel. They were just showing that they were amending this lot.
Oh, and this is an amendment.
Yeah, it's an amendment. So
Okay,
this is be the second, well, the third amendment
okay.
to the subdivision.
So this is kind of like a key plan almost of the larger subdivision. On amendment 2
Yeah.
that we're seeing, and amendment 3, you're seeing the whole thing. Because the amendment is a bit broader. Because it's, you know, it's combining these 3 lots, affecting their size and increasing this.
But it doesn't, all of this land was always in,
Yeah.
This
in the
subdivision.
302
Yeah.
acre subdivision. correct.
because then it's all just changing
This
around.
is
the
the,
inside.
this is the actual of an actual subdivision, the original. When it was created into three.
You are holding it upside down.
Oh, whoops, sorry. This is, it was originally done. When it was created into three lots.
Yeah. Where's Dave, you get what's going on here?
Where did all the houses moved?
Pretty much.
So he's not going outside the boundary lines of the subdivision.
Yeah, that's all I was just checking was it's all, but the boundaries of the subdivision remain the same. It's just the definition of the lots.
That's
He's just cutting it out and changing lot lines within the acreage he owns to grant them to his children down the road. He's reconfiguring the lots.
If there was ever a reason for having a minor subdivision approval process,
Yeah.
here's a case study.
Duly noted.
Mhm.
No.
So again, we're in the sketch plan phase, so if anybody in the public cares to comment, ask a question, go for it. Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of discussion about your project, Jeff, so.
Not a lot going on there.
All right, well, has the board considered enough here during the sketch plan phase?
Yes.
Right, well. Thanks.
Now,
to-
you guys, well, hang on, because
Yeah.
I thought he was creating a new lot in this, but you're not. You're just reconfiguring the acreage, correct?
So
You're not
then-
creating any new lots.
We're
Not John?
changing the record of an existing subdivision lot.
Yeah,
But it's still the same number of lots that from amendment two.
Yeah,
So you're just changing lot lines because of wetlands.
Yes.
that's right.
So you guys need to vote if this needs to have a public hearing.
That's what I thought I thought there was a process that we could jump that. It doesn't concern anybody. This is somebody doing something all within their own land, and it doesn't affect any of the other subdivision people, so that's why I don't think it needs.
But you gotta determine if it needs a public hearing,
and
if they're
And what-
creating
so-
new lots or if they're going outside the boundary of the subdivision.
so one thing they did do is they mapped the wetlands now, right?
We did.
Yeah, and that there is a potential vernal pool identified there with a.
But that doesn't change the definition of the subdivision.
It doesn't, but just in the context of a public hearing, if someone said, hey, what about that vernal pool, or hey, what about the wetlands, or you know,
Well,
Should
Kim
we
said,
give
just said
opportunity?
the criteria is changing the exterior boundaries or adding a lot. And he's
That
actually,
requires a public hearing,
it requires it.
but it's your guys' decision. If he's not creating a new lot and he's not going outside the boundaries of the previously approved subdivision, then it's up to you to determine if it needs a public hearing or not, for what he's proposing.
and I guess I'm just saying, I don't see any reason why that needs, for what he describes, we need public hearing.
And the only things that are changed are that they mapped the wetlands and they adjusted that internal line.
Yep. But aren't you going from 3 lots to 2 lots?
We're changing the lot line of one lot.
But didn't you say that by moving it over, that you had 2 lots, that there were 3 kids and 3 lots, and now you've got 2 kids, and he's gonna have to figure out what he does with one of the kids.
Technically, we're not creating,
You're not creating a lot.
we're creating.
You're reducing.
It's already there.
Well, I'm not, I
moving-
don't think it increases your chances of needing a public hearing in any way. I'm just
No,
saying, just for
I-
the point of clarification, we're going
For
from
the
3
point of
lots to 2.
clarification. We are moving one lot line over.
And that means that the lot, the warrant,
Because they don't meet the minimum
We
acreage.
changed the lot line to, because of the wetlands, so that we would meet the 3 acre threshold.
But you're not creating any new lots.
Correct.
But I just was trying to say, but I had the impression before that there were to the left on this, that there had been 2 lots. And by moving this lot line, it reduced the size, so you're just gonna make this 1 lot on the left side of the boundary line. You're making the adjustment for the right side lot, but by moving that over, it reduced the square footage on the left
And it becomes. a
and becomes
lot-
1 lot rather than 2.
One lot of 4.9 acres, right?
You had said that that was 2 lots before, now it needs to be 1 lot, be big enough. No, okay.
See, that's what they need you to explain to them.
Half lot 3A of the subdivision. We.
Can you not get on? Do you not want to get on?
I tried, you didn't get on.
On the right side, it
Yes,
says revised lot 3A.
totally get 3A.
Okay,
Totally understand what you're doing there. That is,
the remaining land, that's the land, remaining land
Edward,
of Marco Glisi.
a second.
Nothing
Hey,
really,
guys.
nothing.
Online, remember to mute yourself,
No,
please.
still handling.
You can mute people too.
Yeah,
There.
Mary,
yeah.
Mary,
Mar-
you need to mute yourself.
Yeah. Mary- Yeah. just-
Sorry, we can hear you.
Sorry, just mute.
Okay, that's it.
There you go. All right, keep going.
Okay, so
You've got 3 tags on the remaining land, indicating that there are 3 lots.
that goes back to what I said about the deed descriptions and how Marco Glisi obtained them in the deeds. Those were not lots of the subdivision.
It was just
Clarification. of
clarification. how it-
Clarification of what it says in the deed.
How that is totally confusing to me. I don't. How can you have lots in the subdivision that aren't described by the subdivision?
It wasn't as part of the subdivision. It was remaining land.
So there's on amendment number 2, there's lot 1, lot 3A and 3B, which are, I believe, Marco Glisi's.
Right.
One's under 66 Corey Edge LLC,
There, this is my-
one's under James Marco Glisi trustee, and then it's 3A for one. And there's 3 acre, which is part of that. And then there looks like more over here, yeah, huh? This is the amendment 2 that the planning board went to, that is. And then this is amendment 1. Where DeRoche sold a portion of hers to Marco Glisi,
Okay. So it was part of it then,
yeah.
all right. Yes.
So what they're trying to understand is, right now, this shows that he has 2 lots, correct?
Mhm.
And so what you're doing here, just to make sure they understand, is that with all this land here, he's still keeping 3 lots, right? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
You're just shifting the lot lines, so
Yeah.
you're not creating any more
Shifting, yeah,
lots.
yeah.
So it's still 3 lots.
It's staying 3 lots because he's showing 2 lots here. Where's the 3rd lot?
that's over here. That lot over there.
That'd be this one. But they don't
That's,
see-
that's
this
owned
one
by an LLC. That's
Yeah,
not owned by the
that's the
state.
one that you don't see on the plan.
Okay,
It's still 3 lots on the Marco Glisi's. You understand?
There's my,
can I see that subdivision, the original subdivision that creates a whole subdivision?
The first one?
Yeah,
There's two of the same, but it's the same subdivision. We just got two copies of them.
In lot one. $417 feet. So we have on this, there's the first lot that was retained by Henry Smith, and he must have sold it to Marco.
He did. They sold
So,
it to
so
Michael
where,
Gleason.
so, and it says that the lot line is 417 at 0.25 feet is lot one. Here, there's no indication.
See where this is the original, this is
Mm.
over here, because on there, this is much broader.
But wait, hang on. You're looking at the second plan. This is the first amendment. All right, where DeRocher sold 2 acres to Marco Gleason. Okay. So the second plan. Oops. It's right there, and it's telling you down here what they did. So this lot one was over here. That's the one that said, what happened was, is it Tracy that you said, it's lot one that, whoops, they sold, Smith, excuse me, they sold to Marco Gleason, but didn't come for subdivision amendment revision. So they had to come for it after we found out they sold that piece to them, and that's why. And then in the meantime, and what triggered that is because Mrs. DeRocher sold 2 acres to Marco Gleason. And her lot is all part of the subdivision, the 302, who did the original subdivision. So then they tacked on the piece that Henry Smith sold to Marco Gleason on this plan.
And that's why the parcels are out of sequence.
What do you mean?
Well, look at how they're enumerated.
Oh, yeah, by 1A, 3B, yeah.
I'm, the thing, it just isn't equating that if this is that's the only one that we have, that's the full subdivision.
Right.
It's not equating to any of these boundary lines. Where is lot one? So this shows us the most that goes this direction. It just seems like we're saying that the original subdivision ended somewhere like in here or something.
The original, like, when it was approved, the first?
Yeah. Where is that on this plan? Where is that?
It's merged, I
lot
think
line?
it's merged it's on the end, the very end, yeah, right there.
But then I should be able to find a lot that's 417 feet long.
If it's, well, it's merged now with that other piece.
Well, this
It's
one,
merged, look at plan 2. See that piece that's kind of cut off there?
this, yes,
It's merged in with that piece.
I think
That
that-
2 acres right again.
that's must be,
Picture.
yeah. Yeah, it's just that was a change and it's because the addition of these 2 lot lines comes over way over 417 feet. So that lot was somewhere in here and we've never seen.
Luckily, we're only in the sketch plan phase, so perhaps.
If you want me to label that lot one, you put a lot line on there, I can do that.
Perhaps,
Well, yeah, I guess it's where you're saying you're making a change from the original subdivision.
Well, we're making a change to the amended sub.
Well, then I guess maybe it's that we don't, this end lot never was shown in the amendment as an amendment.
It was in section, amendment one, wasn't it?
But it's not-
You got them over there, so. Can't tell you. Wait, one? That's it. One.
Jeff,
So- One is the 2 acres that he got from DeRoche, and also the land that, the 1 acre that Henry Smith owned. That was sold to Marco Glisi. Was not, didn't come for an amendment, so they had to add it to it. To this amendment 1, but you see the kind of the fork on the end. He doesn't show the whole lot though. on
You
the
mean
end,
this little
no,
thing?
on the end.
Oh,
Yeah, so that piece is this piece.
okay.
And it had to be merged, and then she sold 2 acres to Martha Gleason. And amendment 2 should show plan.
The numbers aren't matching up. I mean, this says, so this lot 1, okay, so that's fully visible on this one. Here's first lot, lot 3A.
what about
Lot
we
3.
have them submit like a narrative? Showing
Yeah,
them-
we're not, just not getting from, we don't have plans that get us from, this is the last thing that they submitted, and this is where they're going to, because that has a 416 foot, 0.82 length lot. And that, there's nothing here that has a 416 foot south lot. None of them have. So this lot doesn't appear to be on here. In the same dimensions. Right?
It's on there. It's just,
It's a ball.
416, and that's only 259. Oh, is that,
No, he's got
what,
the piece that's way over there. No, yeah, that next one, where your fingers come in towards me, that one. What's the width of that one on the bottom?
416?
So that's this piece. Right there. And then this piece is that 1 acre piece. Do you understand that?
this is that line right there. That's that one. This line is the,
275, 275, so
Yeah.
you're right to there.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I add 259 and 158,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting from.
Yeah.
So
That's okay.
that line, that line.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And though he owns this actually as one lot, or he owns all this as,
Yeah.
It's all.
he has one deed for all that, even though you have different book numbers. No,
Correct,
You have,
correct, because it, see how it says like third lot, first lot, second lot,
so those,
it's
does,
all,
is he have these as 3, he has these as 3 lots,
there, it's one deed,
1 deed, okay,
it's one deed.
okay,
Same deed reference,
yes, same
Yeah,
book number,
yeah.
yes.
this one's a different book and page. I know, there's a lot of lines on there because of the old subdivision.
But yeah, and well, it's mostly that these. If you're, I suppose it's. Tax numbers. Yeah, the lot number is all 1 for this.
It is, it's one lot.
Oh, okay, so that means he has 2 lots and he's just splitting the line. Okay, he's staying moving. He's moving a lot within, so he's not changing the number of lots.
According to him, no.
That sounds like this guy.
No, I'm not skeptical. I'm just saying it. He's the one
Yeah,
representing the
yeah.
client.
Well, and he's got lot numbers on there. You know, not tax map and lot numbers, and the town number is the same.
Yes.
So do we need a public hearing?
I would say no.
I agree with that.
Dave, do we need a public hearing?
I don't think so, because he's not creating additional lots.
So I guess we should have a motion and comment on that.
I make a motion that he does not, this project does not need a public hearing.
Tracy Keller, I second that.
All right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
myself, William Hanley, aye. Okay, so no public hearing. I guess,
So you can just leave the room, go away.
Yeah, all right.
We're done, go away. Kim says go away.
but we still have to do completeness and have a finding on that.
I don't understand why they're all.
I-
Kim must have something to share with me.
Mm,
So we just need,
We've got the completeness checklist, you know, we have to drill down.
are we doing that tonight?
I was not anticipating doing that tonight. Usually they come back and they do that, and we have typically the public hearing and the final finding on it, so
I would say just because because it does seem like what's strong is confusing.
My one still.
No, I don't think.
That we do.
No, I-
anymore.
They
yeah,
don't.
When
Yeah, no,
he's
just make it
clear, made it clear.
yeah, so I
Send
think,
like however
I
many.
think he still needs to come back.
Copies of it, but we need to keep, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
No, why
He
not?
doesn't need to,
Why not?
because he's not creating a new lot and he's not going outside the boundaries of the subdivision.
So why? is
That's
he
why I
doing
asked,
that?
because he's changing the lot lines within the
But
subdivision.
he wants us to sign though. and
He's gonna
then-
bring you back, he's gonna bring back a plan for you to sign.
So there's no completeness, there's no
No.
public hearing.
No,
He just comes back with a plan and we sign it,
yep,
and we don't have any finding or anything.
no, because you didn't find any, he wasn't doing anything outside the scope that required re-review of the subdivision.
That's what we're looking for with
Yeah, there are
subdivision
minor
change.
subdivision
Exactly.
plan.
Well, we'll have no work on that stuff.
where it's-
Yeah, but that's, I mean, this was good enough.
Yeah,
Did he-
there's another one. for you. All right,
Yes.
Sorry.
all right, Steve,
Yeah.
you're coming back with an updated plan.
He's gonna send them to us and we'll have you sign it at the next meeting.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
All right. Let's soldier on. All right, second sketch plan review tonight. We have subdivision 002 2023. Owner name is Mount Desert 365. Agent is Greg Johnson, GF Johnson Associates. Location is 5 Manchester Road, Northeast Harbor. Tax map 23, lot 25, Village Residential 1 is the zoning district. And the purpose is subdivision as defined in the construction or placement of 3 or more dwelling units on a single tract or parcel of land within a 5-year period. The proposal is the construction or placement of 6 dwelling units on a single tract or parcel of land within a 5-year period. Workforce housing, and we had a site visit at 4, and was this one
Advertised,
advertised?
yeah. It was just advertised.
No,
I don't send about it because it doesn't, I don't have to,
okay,
not for a sketch plan.
so when was it advertised?
Oh, sorry. February 23rd in the Islander and the North American.
Got it. Then I guess I should ask if there's any conflict of interest on the board with this one. none heard. We had a site visit at 4 o'clock. Meredith, what do you think about reporting on the site visit for us?
Don't you want to do it, Bill?
Oh, I might add a few things.
So we marched through the snow across, they have it nicely marked it out with, yellow tape as to where each of the new buildings are going. And then blue tape up the center line of the driveway. Which goes up to the north side of the garage that's already there, and they're going to renovate the garage as it is to become storage. The driveway is very much coming in through, there's a lot of woods there. That'll have to come out. And then we walked all the way over to the south side of the property, that's the right of way, and they said that they are actually not going to use that at all for utilities or even driveway access or anything. Even the old heel house, which is going to be renovated, is going to have a new parking on the north side of the house. And they proposed putting a fence along the right of way, even though it's their property. It gives them greater privacy in the subdivision and separation from the neighbors.
Utilities were discussed to be coming off of Neighborhood Road, not off Manchester or the right of way. The garage was gonna remain and stay a garage use. The existing house was going to remain a single family house. They were adding the new 2-family house on the corner, another 2-family house internally, and another single family house. So 3 new structures on the site. What else? Tracy, did you have anything?
Each residence has, I guess each residence has, two parking spots. And they just have the one, common driveway for all of the houses. And there is, the driveway sort of, curves a bit to allow some of the foliage to be more of a screen for the residences.
Okay. Greg, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna allow the executive director.
Please stand up.
Captain Miller, say a few words first.
All right, thank you. Hello, I'm Captain Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Mountain 1365. Our organization owns this property. We've had it since 2017, and we bought it for the purposes of year-round housing. And so we have, Greg is acting as our agent, and we may also hear today from Noel Musson, who is helping us to make sure we are within all of the ordinances. And everything we're doing is to use the tools the town created through its ordinances to achieve the goals the town set for itself in the comprehensive plan. And so this proposal is for 6 residential dwellings to be used year round. You may recall, we came to you in May of 21. We had some input from people at that sketch plan review, and based on that, we've made some changes. And so we provided you with that information. We've got a picture of it here. And I'll go through a couple of the changes that we've made. As you outlined, we're going to retain and refurbish the existing garage for residential storage use. It was a good point. We all have too much stuff. We all need places to keep it. There's an existing great old building there, and we want to make it as available as possible. So all of the new homes, the new residences will have a bay that they can store bicycles, tools. They can create a little workshop if they want to, snow blowers, rakes, grills, whatever you want. They've got their own private storage space there. In order not to have any more buildings than we originally proposed, we're going to combine two of the single-family homes into one duplex that would actually be further from the corner than we had originally proposed. And each of these residences, there's a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, they have their entrances 90 degrees from each other, so there's privacy for the different parts of the duplex. We are also going to eliminate the use of the existing driveway. Our original plan had the residents of the Heel House using the original driveway to go back and forth, and we're changing that. We heard from folks their concern about pedestrian and bicycle traffic, especially on Manchester. And so we're going to have all of the residents of this subdivision go in and out of Neighborhood Road, an entrance on that side, so that there won't be anybody driving directly onto Manchester Road, and hope that is something of a safety factor. We have redesigned the driveway, as you pointed out. It's got a nice little curve in it. It had been straight before. We've moved it back a little further from the corner from our original plan for more safety considerations. So there's a longer line of sight to the corner, and it sort of meanders a little bit so we can have more of a greenery buffer between the sidewalk or the driveway there and into the property. We are also going to be adding some buffering and landscaping around the edges. As you saw today, there is an old fence from Manchester about to where the driveway has been. We want to replace that and actually extend the fence all the way along that property line. It's not actually, it's within the property, but to the far end of our property lot for enhanced buffering from the neighbors for the property. We'll have a gate to walk through. It won't be for vehicular traffic to go back and forth that way at all. And a lot more landscaping. We want to have landscaping within the site to create more privacy between residents and between passersby and the people there, so that, you know, there are a couple of areas where there are going to be cars parking. Every house would have 2 car spaces for them, and we want to buffer that visually from the road as well. And finally, I think that since we met with you, you know, I was looking back over our meeting notes and the old recording of that meeting from May 21. I heard, yeah, that's an ugly building that you've got mocked up there. And it was just for scale. Since that time, I think that we have found a beautiful building to put up, several beautiful buildings. We were being very cautious. We know that people are conservative. We want to find building styles that are going to work here. And I think that we have found that. So we've provided a couple of visuals for you here. One is if you were on Manchester driving from south to north, if you were going from north to south, and then if you were looking into the driveway. I do have these available on my computer here, and if you want, I can share them on the screen so people can see them as well. If you want me to share my screen, but I don't have to. So I have my Vanna White here to help
You're a
them.
lovely assistant.
And he cooks as well, so it's I very well. But you know, they are sort of New England style homes. There's a Cape is the single family home, and then the others are duplexes, a 2-family and a 3-bedroom. They're 2 families. One is 2 bedrooms, one has 3 bedrooms, and their entrances are opposed to each other. So I'll let Greg pick up from there to talk about some of the other sides.
Great. Thank you, Greg Johnson, engineer, with the applicant. I think between the site visit and Kathy, you guys have covered.
I'm
quite a
sorry
bit.
to interrupt. Those of us who are online would like to see those images, please. Since
Yes,
you
I think we're going to share. If you guys could
Is that all right?
activate share screen. Trying to manage between paper and digital, and Kathy will be able to share her screen here. Maybe Kathy, we're able to share the site plan first, and so while she's sharing, I think the only other couple of things we can discuss is that it's really focused on differentiating materials between the driveway that have like a cobble to separate this sort of private drive into the property. Similarly with the parking spaces, they'll be designated with a different
Go to
material.
security.
Enable waiting.
I haven't.
Your share screen is checked.
Mhm.
And it's not, you were on the green button, the green share screen, click there. If you go to advanced share options,
Isn't it
Yeah.
one participant can share?
click on that,
Good.
see what that.
Yes.
Kathy's
Yeah,
got a lot.
I,
Before she can
Okay.
share.
You got it.
Just gotta log in.
So we're working on the screen sharing.
So I think it's fine just to
Yeah.
wait because of the visual. Uh,
do you want to share the other one first?
Yeah, explain,
Yep.
explain what we're looking at.
Whatever we land on, we'll start.
Right.
So this is a sketch plan, and hopefully, some of you've seen it, but, again, the arch on the entry to kind of keep light, trespass in. A very dense evergreen buffer on either side of the, units. We're saying before is differentiation materials between the driveway and the parking. And you see that again, down by the garage, which will be converted to individual storage. Just a different pattern that allows people to roll things and get in there. Again, you can see, of those who couldn't see this before, is how the two family dwellings are situated with their entrances sort of private, with a deck on one side and an entry, but also the other two family which faces Manchester has a similar sort of walkway, sort of echoing the elements that's on the existing heel house, and you'll be able to see that in the renderings as well. Other things we talked about on the site, in addition to not using, again, the differentiation of not using for the original heel house, the access to the driveway. There was questions about sewer. I've seen some of the letters questions about sewer. There is an existing sewer, say to the, I guess it'd be the southeast corner, has a connection to the heel house, also to the adjacent, the new units aren't using that sewer. The public sewer exists along Manchester Road as well as the water. We want to talk about water. You could, to avoid a situation where you have a dead end water line with these constant flushing and maintenance, they'll bring a water main in, it will loop the corner it'll come in the drive and then go between the heel residence and the new two family back out to Manchester to create a loop so that pressure changes and quality are constantly circulating. And I guess other things we're exploring that will come through in the next phases of things like pervious pavement, more detail on the landscaping plan, but between Kathy and the sidewalk, I think that describes the premise. If you want to see the renderings, we can walk through. So this is the one which you have seen, which is viewed northeasterly. The existing heel residence on the right, and the two family, which is sort of a farm home with like an addition in the background. That's sort of the style of homes that we're looking at, so that one I think you've seen, it's on the cover of the application. Second one, sort of looking, yeah, that's fine, yeah. So there's another rendering of the two families, sort of additional style home. It's got the walkways we talked about, echoing the heel property entrance onto Manchester. The last rendering is sort of here's sort of what we're envisioning at the entrance. They've dimmed out some of the buffering to kind of give you a sense of what's there, but differentiation of materials, cars, buffer between the street and the cars. I think between there, I guess the other part we had discussed is the very far, could be the southeast corner, an existing tree grove area, which is partly remained undeveloped. That is a result of saying, let's keep the garage and have the affordability goal of 5 new units. So by using a two family instead of certainly another single family could fit, on there, but that is being left as buffer and green spaces, the southeast corner. So combining into another sort of farm style 2-unit building, leaving that as sort of green spaces is part of the plan. I think that kind of covers it at a pretty decent level for the board to have any comments, or if Noel or Kathy think if you missed anything you want to add, I'm happy to.
We can talk about density calculations now, or we can wait.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit, Noel, and then I'm sure there's gonna be questions from the public.
Thank you, Noel Musson, planner consultant. I think when we were originally here for the first sketch plan, the project basically used similar calculations, but just to kind of review, how you kind of think through a project that is either a subdivision, standard subdivision, or a workforce housing subdivision. You really have to start with the density in the subdivision ordinance that deals with it's 5.16.2, so 516.2 in the subdivision ordinance. And generally, the density is calculated of a lot is calculated using minimum lot size of the developable portion of the parcel. In the standard subdivision, you'd start to think about, are there any wetland areas or any areas that we have to take out of the equation for this? But in a workforce housing subdivision application, the entire parcel actually will, it says in the ordinance, will be used to calculate density. So then we start to go back to the standards that identifies in section 5.16.2 actually points you back to table in the ordinance, section 3.5. The chart that says, what the minimum lot sizes are, both for lots with sewer or lots without sewer, what zone you're in. So this parcel is actually in a village residential 1 zone with a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet per standard size. That's because it's served by town sewer. The existing parcel, according to the survey, is 0.9 acres or 39,204 square feet, which would give you a regular. So if you took the VR1 zoning district of 10,000 square feet, divided 39,204 divided by 10,000 actually gives you a minimum lot area of 3.9 lots. Or if you take the extension of the ordinance, it's actually 6 units, either through the duplex, using duplexes, or the town has a provision in the ordinance that allows for accessory dwelling units on lots. So the base density of this parcel is 6 units. Does that make sense? Everybody? Just making sure. Yeah. We can provide more, like sort of a more written outline in the formal application process, but just want to make sure because it's builds on one another. So as a side note, also table in 3.5 actually has a minimum lot size for workforce housing projects of the state minimum. I don't think there is a minimum lot size for lots that are served by town sewer. So we're still using like the 10,000 square feet as our base calculation. So without any density bonuses, as I mentioned, the overall lot size is really 6 units. Where this project is proposing a workforce housing non-land subdivision, which allows for density bonuses based on regulations that are outlined in 5.16.2. All of the parcel, all of the units are going to be dedicated to workforce housing. So that section of the ordinance allows for 75% or more of the units are dedicated to workforce housing. You get a density, well, you get, if all of the units are dedicated to workforce housing, you get a 75% density bonus. So here's where the math starts to build. If you can calculate this in a bunch of different ways, I'll just keep it simple. If you take 39,204 and you multiply that by 1.75, that gives you 68,607 square feet. That's how you start to calculate your density bonuses. And then you divide that 68,607 divided by 10,000 square feet gives you 6.9 units or lots, essentially. So that's the base density that we're working with.
I think a calculation summary would be highly informative.
Right there. But that's the building, that's how you build, there's a bunch of different, there's like actually three kind of very similar ways you can do the math. The first one, as you can
Can
see.
you put it up on the,
Yeah,
does Kathy have it?
Yeah, can we screen?
I don't think she has it.
Okay.
So this will be included in the full information.
Yes.
Yeah,
For sure, but I just want to make sure as so the question that was asked of me by MP 365 is how do we make sure we're meeting the standards of the ordinance? And that and since we're doing a workforce housing project, as you know, it could be a little bit more interesting as you start to think about how you implement that. And I think this is really the crux of what we're getting at. But the point to make is the base density as a starting point is 6 units. This project is actually providing 6 units and dedicating to workforce housing. So we can do the math a couple of different ways, but the density calculation, the 1.75, actually, there's a few different ways to get there.
So, just a couple things, maybe Kathy, if we could stop screen sharing and get everybody back on here, and I think we're probably gonna start rolling into questions from the public now, given this is sketch plan, and tis the time to ask questions about the project. So Jamie, I think you had your hand up first there.
I did, thank you. I actually have a couple of questions. They're sort of related. The first of which, the density calculation, Noel, that you were referencing, is that based on the town of Mount Desert? Is that based on the state? Like, what standard are you using for those calculations?
The density calculations are all based on the town of Mount Desert land use ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. It actually sort of starts with the subdivision ordinance, since that's what this application is applying for, and then the numbers kind of refer back to the land use ordinance.
Okay, so this is a matter of sort of existing.
It's not a state dimensional standard, it's a local dimensional standard.
Okay, and then the second question is, I've heard some discussion around the changing of, I don't know if it's an ordinance or what, around the width of the road based on the number of cars or the number of dwellings. Is that something that's, factored into your plan? Is that, it was like, sort of what does that mean? Does it require, changing an ordinance in order to get the density that you're looking for, apart from the calculations that you've made?
So nothing with regard to this application is a change in the ordinance. This is all being designed and approved based on the current ordinance, all the ordinances that are in place. So there's no change in ordinance that has to do with the subdivision application.
I suspect that Greg made reference to the choice to not make it individual lots.
Right,
So it didn't have to be subdivision wide road.
well, so the application is a non-land subdivision, and there's no road. Technically, there's no road being proposed. It's a driveway. That's the standard in the ordinance.
We would say, let me just add to that, the access way is a 16-foot wide, 2-lane access way, same as the subdivision, whether you had one car or.
When you guys speak, go up to the podium just so the owl can see you, please.
So the owl doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on that, there is no exception on the access width for safety. Subdivision would say you build a 16-foot wide road. By definition, it's a driveway because it's only within one lot by the ordinance, but it's still 16-foot wide for 2-way traffic. So no exception being requested for that element specific to the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the final question, which, first I'll say I appreciate the sort of adjustments and concessions made by MDI 365 in terms of safety, right, for pedestrian and bicycle traffic. I know that, my kids have enjoyed riding their bikes along that stretch of of Manchester and everybody else's kids back and forth. Neighborhood Road is also a pretty active thoroughfare for kids on bikes. Any sort of concerns or studies that you've done around that? Because I know there will be a bunch of extra cars in the area. So any sort
Yeah,
of
certainly, they have, so traffic engineer have been engaged, looked at traffic since even the last sketch plan, so they have real data on how many people really use the road. Part of the suggestions in increasing, sort of the distance at the corners, that was all through the planning that we described earlier. So they weren't just aesthetics, there were some considerations in making it safer. Particular to studies, yes, and then, of course, what the what the amounts of traffic generated, I think is somewhere neighborhood of 6 vehicles in the peak hour, because it's workforce people coming and going at those peak hours, which I think is in the morning. So we'll have more on that in the completeness hearing. So yes, I'd answer your question, Jamie, that they did carry on additional studies through that time period, particularly during the summer, to understand the differentials between influx and what's used, and applied that to sort of what sort of peak, let's say peak generation are we looking at? So hopefully that helps answer your question.
great, yeah. Could you share those studies with the public?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
So just looking through everybody, I'm not seeing any other hands up, but we've got a number of questions. Oh, Charlene,
Yep, hi. Greg, I want to ask you a question. I'm not clear about the utilities. Tell me again, does that mean, is there an existing sewer line there? Go over that again for me, please. I'm just not sure about it.
Sure, I have a little bit of trouble pointing. I'm going to point to the
You want me to?
easel.
yeah,
Maybe
you
I'll
want,
bring it. I'll bring this to the
Wait.
owl.
do you want to screen share back to
So
the,
that plan.
Oh, if Rick just brings this.
Well, you
up
can
in the
just
hour.
tell me. You can just tell me.
So,
Okay.
Charlie, you're probably familiar with me. Partly in this,
Greg, she's got it.
okay.
Here.
Yes, I can. Two worlds. So on the south, let's see. I'll do it with. Behind the barn at the end, behind the garage, at the end of the existing gravel, oh, there it is. I couldn't see it there, but I can see it there. I need better glasses. So just about here, there is a sanitary manhole. That sanitary provides service to the abutter to the south. They have 2 connections in there, it appears to be, maybe one continues up. There's also a connection from the heel into that sewer. That sewer, Charlie, runs into your property, which is a private sewer line, as I understand it, that connects up to another private sewer line that the town does not maintain nor wants to maintain, that crosses through your property to the, on its route to the pump station in the low. That sewer is not being used for the new development. You'll have to tap sanitary sewer on Manchester Road itself, up between the Heel property and the first planned duplex. So probably in this area here, we have to tap sewer. They will not be using the sewer that crosses your property. I did see that in some of the early communications, that it's an old line, it's undersized. It's privately maintained. We don't know how it's maintained, but we're not increasing flows on that connection. So does that help?
It helps a lot. Thank you very much.
And Greg, just for a point of reference for everybody, south on this plan
Is to the right.
to the right. Just wanted,
Yes.
there's nothing telling, and you keep on saying to the south. Anyway, yeah.
Ines, I believe you had your hand up next.
Can I get in?
Yeah, and
Thank
And Ines, please identify yourself for the record. Thank you.
Hi, Ines Hancock. I grew up in Northeast year-round from the age of 9 forward. Now I'm fortunate enough to be there in the summer with my family, and we were there during 2 winters during COVID. And I have a question, and I don't know, I have a couple of different questions, and then whoever can answer whichever part. My first question is, have you I guess, MD 365, Noel or anyone, done the research that says, you know, you've done a great job describing to us, given the lot size, what you can do. What I'm interested in is the research showing what we should do in terms of an overall grand plan and timeline for Northeast Harbor, in terms of the other properties owned by MD 365, as well as incorporating the other building going on by the Jackson Lab, huge amount of housing for Acadia that they just got the big grant from, as well as the building going on in Southwest Harbor and other building sites in Northeast Harbor. I'm just wondering, how does this fit in a grand plan for increasing workforce housing availability over the island, or you could just say within Northeast Harbor. So I'm just interested in who did that market research. You know, I know the codes say we can do so many houses and whatever. I'm just wondering what the need is. Are we underbuilding, overbuilding, those kinds of numbers? My other, should I?
Ines, let her answer that first.
Okay.
I would say that Mount Desert 365 collaborated with the Island Housing Trust and a number of other entities to look at the housing needs on the island back in 2018. And so at that point, it was indicated that hundreds of homes were needed to accommodate the people who were driving back on and off the island every day for work. So this is a small drop in that bucket. Since that time in 2018, we have seen things get far worse in terms of availability and affordability for year-round people on the island here. I believe that Bar Harbor did their own town study and a big survey, and they're talking about even more homes, like 600 homes that are needed, and maybe on the island, maybe just in Bar Harbor, to accommodate the people who did their survey. So I think that there is no shortage of need. I think that you mentioned a number of other institutions on the island, and I think you may have already received a letter from a number of those institutions sign on, say they support this because the need is there. And a lot of institutions on the island and private businesses are finding that housing has become the main obstacle in filling positions, in keeping businesses open. And it just needs to be addressed. This is a drop in the bucket of what is needed.
We turn the screen show.
Yes.
Okay, but that's not an actual research study that you can share with any of us. That's just your sort of like, think that there's lots of need kind of answer. I mean, I'm not doubting that there's need and I'm fully in support of it. I'm just wondering if there's any kind of data to go off of.
Yeah, thank you. And I think there is an actual report that Kathy's referring to that you can find on the Island Housing Trust website that was done in 2018 that actually was Camoin and Associates. And my company was a part of that study, and that is publicly available and would support the conclusion that even at that time, there was still a dramatic need for housing on all of the towns on NDI. And then Bar Harbor's report actually is available online at the town of Bar Harbor. So that's something that people can look at. And I think it just goes to support the idea, from the sort of the high level planning side, that there are, there is a huge need for year-round housing availability for year-round workers on NDI. There's also a huge need for seasonal housing on NDI. So there's lots of different needs, and those reports are available to get out there. Incidentally, we will also be at the town of Mount Desert updating your comprehensive plan, and that data will further be updated as part of that, the housing section of the comp plan.
I have no doubt there's tons of need. I'm sure there's tons of need. I was just wondering, thank you. I'll look up some of those studies. Noel or anyone else, did you do studies for this particular development in terms of the burden that it would bring to the infrastructure of the town other than the sewer? Like, do you need to then upgrade the power like we did on Main Street? Do you need to upgrade any other internet, structures? Who's going to bear the responsibility to kind of spearhead and pay for those upgrades?
Dennis, I'll field that one. Sure, we have worked closely with Public Works, both on the sewer. Of course, the district is private. We have worked with them, they reviewed the preliminary plans, feel they have capacity, and I think one of the things to remember is if there's 5 houses here, it's like saying not 5 more houses somewhere in neighborhood road or further from Manchester, you know, that the system couldn't support it. And so if it's sort of to them, it's like, yeah, we look at it, we have the capacity, but it's just not limited to this one small area. Part of that study also results in what I had just answered to Charlene. We know where the sewer is in good shape and satisfactory size, and have responded to that and how we planned it. Power, there is power there. We have, according to Versant, we are bringing power underground, so there's no lines behind the building internal transformer to the site, a single transformer that can feed underground to the residents. So as far as the burden on infrastructure, we've also met with Public Works about how waste disposal will go, similar to other private places in and around. They have said that they would have no problem backing in if people had it at the curb like they do other places. They said, how wide is the drive? Okay, here's infrastructure. We're 16 feet wide. Oh, we do it to everybody. Everybody asks us to back in. We can come do it. So Water District, Public Works, waste, wastewater treatment, Versant, all those people have met and been coordinated up front. And in the completeness package, you'll have letters from those agencies attesting their sort of review and coordination with the plan.
Thank you so much. One more quick question for Greg. If they have visitors to the house, where are they going to park? Along the street on Neighborhood Road? And if so, are you increasing the shoulder to accommodate that?
Yeah, I see that's a tack that a lot of people on that road do. They have widened the road to facilitate parking. In talking with Public, there's nothing against parking on the road there. If you're here in the winter, they have a no parking. We think there's overflow parking within the site itself, down by the garage and some other places to facilitate that. But to answer your question specifically, no, we're not planning on widening the road as some do. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right. Right. So I recognize Jamie's had his hand up. Ms. Burden, you've had your hand up. Mr. Haberman, you physically have your hand up, so I'm gonna jump to you. So.
Great. And thank you. And thanks for all the updates. This is really helpful. Just a general question. Do you have a sense of the cost for any of this for single family homes or the duplexes? Like how much is this per unit for each of the residents that would be moving in?
Our goal would be to keep them well under $300,000 per home, where we would love to have it be around 275. The longer we wait, the more it goes up. But we have not put in an order for the house yet, but that is our goal, to have it as affordable as possible and looking at about a $275,000 house.
And are the residents still responsible for having the homes installed, or is that something that 365 would help facilitate?
We're certainly we're going to help facilitate it. We would have a general contractor to do the development work on site, to do the landscaping and to put in the foundation. So it's hand in glove through the whole process to make sure the houses are on and that they're functioning before they're closed up and people move in.
Okay, and then maybe asking Ines' question a little bit differently. It does feel like there's a lot of density, and I'm just curious, as you think about families, you know, young children, and obviously the pictures depict that, but there's not a lot of open space. There's not much green space, and, you know, unless the kids are going to be playing in the street all the time, I'm just curious how you thought about that challenge of, you know, how do you provide space for children to play versus sort of the calculation, the data, which says 6 units and obviously maximizing, because with parking, 12 plus cars, it really doesn't seem like there is a lot of space for kids.
There's a little space around each home, a little patio area or a deck. There is the corner lot and there's a fair amount of space back there. It's also a block away is the elementary school with huge playing fields. And then a mile or so away is Acadia National Park and even all the hiking trails through Northeast Harbor. So there's no shortage of places for people to be outside, I think.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of families and kids. And then lastly, I know parking was mentioned, so I don't want to repeat that, but the driveway itself, obviously it's directly opposite my house and sort of a little bit, I guess, opposite my driveway, but can you just speak to why you didn't consider a second entrance? I know Manchester Road has been mentioned, but it seems like you don't want to go that direction. And, you know, with 12 plus cars in 6 units, it seems like a lot of activity coming opposite my house, but I'm just curious, why not have a second entrance exit on Manchester Road? Thank you.
When I first got on the job, so in 2017, and I spoke with the neighbors abutting the property on the south end, I heard their concerns about so many people coming in and going out. And so we devised the original plan to have no change for those neighbors. Only the existing heel house would use our driveway on the south end. And everyone else would come in on Neighborhood Road. And then we moved that. Our first plan was to have it directly across from your driveway. And after conversation with you, we heard your concerns about that, lights coming and going. So we moved it. And so it's a little closer, it's further up, but we have taken into consideration the safety factors, the proximity to the corner, so that we're trying to get between a safety factor and your comfort level. But we also heard at the earlier meeting, concern primarily around people on bikes, children on bikes on Manchester. And so we just wanted to eliminate direct contact in and out of Manchester as much as possible, since that seemed to be the greatest concern, and have everybody go in and out this way. So we're trying to be as accommodating as possible and keep safety factors in there. And that's how we arrived at our current plan.
Yeah, I would just point out that a lot of kids cut through Neighborhood Road, whether it's going to the Fleet or various going downtown to get ice cream and this and that. So I would say that the challenge is equally difficult either direction, whether it's Manchester or Neighborhood. But thank you, Kathy.
And I always think I'm reminded always of signs you see around different roads that say, drive like your children live here. Well, I think that would apply to this group of people. We're hoping that people live there with children, because we need to keep our school going. We want to have families there with children. And I think they will be driving like their children are there, and they'll be careful.
You also said at one point 12 units. Did you mean 12 cars? 12 cars.
12.
12.
No, I think I said 12 cars, but the parking issue.
Okay,
But
I heard you say
thank you.
12 units.
Yeah.
No, it's 6. I got it. Thank you.
Got it.
All right, Miss Burden, you're up. Jean Burden.
Unmute Jean Burden and Mrs. Ordway Burden. We have an extended summer, June through October now, at Corning Way, which is off of South Shore Road. And we've been there in the winter too. So first I'm going to make a comment about the traffic, which was already been talked about. Everybody in the town, I think the whole country, is driving much faster. I know they are. And I find that on our driveway, which services now 5 homes, even getting people on our private way. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. To actually, so I think this is just an issue for the entire town, if not the country, to slow people down. So that's just one comment. The other one is more a question which was touched on, trying to understand the structure of how people will own or rent or what they'll do and how that will be protected. Because I know there have been some places that were willed to be housing for low income, and then how do you monitor that? I'm sure you figured it out, but can you explain that?
Yes, happy to. Our goal for this is to make them affordable for year-round families in perpetuity. And so there are affordability covenants in there, and there are eligibility criteria to be able to purchase one of these homes. So we have not wanting to reinvent the wheel. We follow along the criteria that Island Housing Trust has had in place for many years, and it works very well. So we're talking about a maximum income cap, and we're talking about using this as your year-round primary residence and not an availability to rent out. So this is not ever going to be a short-term rental arrangement. And the covenants are, the legal documentation on this will keep it going every 30 years. And it would just automatically renew unless within a year of a 30-year limit. the homeowners association and the condo association determines that they want to stop that. We would never foresee that going. We want to keep this affordable in perpetuity. But I appreciate your concern on that, Jean. It is a problem to see something set up and then go out of affordability range and then get to it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Jamie, I believe you had your hand up next.
Thank you.
Yes.
So it's sort of a footnote. One of the previous speakers mentioned that there's overflow parking next to the garage. It's not on the plan. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that. And then I know that there was a question in the chat. That's the first question. So.
Sure, you notice we've talked about the differentiation materials that, people aren't parked all the time in front of the garage, but we have pavers in there if somebody needed to pull in there and still back out. That's one area for overflow parking is in front of the hardscape, which is normally used for access for coming and going, just dropping off goods at the garage.
Okay, all right, that explains that. Thank you. And then the second question is, so it sounds like these are condominiums. So are there, like a association fees or something that everyone will be paying into to maintain the landscaping and the plowing and that sort of thing? Is that how the plan is?
It'll be managed. It will be. Yep, they're managed by a homeowners association. They'll have a limited common element where they're more in control of it in around their immediate house, and then we'll pay to contribute to upkeep the landscape. So that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Is that factored into the economic calculations in terms of affordability?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Milstein, I believe you were next. Going once. Lincoln, are you there? You're up.
He'll be back.
Yeah.
Next.
All right, we're moving on. The Saberman, I believe you were next.
I'm here, hold on, sorry. Tracy Aberman, year-round resident. I just have a couple questions and they're kind of all around the map, just based on what we've been talking about. Will
Let's
the
limit
workers?
questions to 3 questions per person. How about that? For
Oh,
starters.
okay, my questions are pretty quick.
All right.
So are this is a 2-part question. It's one question, but 2 parts.
3 1-part questions.
All right. So will the workers that you're going to be housing, are they going to be working in Northeast Harbor? Because there's a lot of talk about commuting and the lack of anybody wanting to have more than a 10-minute commute. And yet it seems like the people who can afford to live in these houses are going to need to have 2 jobs. And that's probably going to be from our bigger employers like COA or Jackson Labs. So, you're putting this a very high density thing in a summer neighborhood. And so are these people going to actually be contributing to Northeast Harbor? 2, is there any chance that these houses are being built for MD 365 workers? 3, I'm wondering what the actual taxpayer burden is on us. It sounds nice on paper that it meets everything. But then as we know, as these projects go, all of a sudden you're telling us, oh, oops, we didn't know that we had to do this, that, or the other. We have to lead power from the back of Tracy Road to open a restaurant. We have to, and this all ends up coming back to us as a taxpayer. And my 4th question, and I know I'm only allowed 3, is why can't this be less than 6 houses? Why does it need to be 6 houses? It's a drop in the bucket. No matter what we do, and 3 units fits better into this neighborhood. When you look at the overhead plan, it is all trees, and this looks like it's going to be a clear-cut opening up of this lot and really sticking. I know that you're allowed to do it. I'm not saying you're not allowed to do it. I just don't understand why the sensitivity level to the neighbors is so low in this project. I think you do own other parcels of land in higher density parts of the town. And I do believe that there would probably be no sort of resistance to putting a higher density units in those areas of town. Whereas here, I feel like you're really sort of shoving these 6 houses into a place where if you look at the overhead view, it's all trees.
So, all right, so Greg, which 3 of those 4 questions do you want?
Well, I couldn't remember which number 1 was, though someone reminded me. I did hear about the conjecture whether would infrastructure that be expanded onto a restaurant, and I could say that that was not part of the plan and nothing we discussed internally. Regarding the ability, whether they were ND 365 employees, I don't think that's the purpose. I don't know that they're specifically excluded, because if they work in town and they're going to meet the requirements they set forth, I have not heard, and Kathy may speak to it, that they've been excluded. But that's not the purpose.
We would.
So, maybe some lower on the financial, Kathy, maybe you want to brush on, what's the other, cost of the town? Cost of town. Yeah. So,
They'll pay taxes like
yeah,
everybody else.
it's on the tax roll. They'll pay taxes like everybody else. We have been talking with Kyle on how that will unfold. So, yep, they'll pay taxes.
No, I wasn't asking if they would pay taxes. I was asking what we, the taxpayers, are going to pay to subsidize this project. You know, it's presented as MD 365 is doing everything for this project. And you know, what I alluded to about the restaurant and leading power down is just things happen that surprise, you know, the project. And all of a sudden you're saying, well, do the taxpayers are going to support this because this isn't part of the private thing. This is part of town infrastructure.
I'll just add, I think if we were expending public funds on a private project, that would have to make the warrant, would have to go to town committee. So, town meeting. So that has not been part of the plan. Hopefully that clears it up. There's no intentions that the town is paying for this, any of these upgrades.
So the existing infrastructure in terms of power and sewer and water
Yeah.
supports.
I think, I don't want to prove, but I think we've talked about that, right?
Yeah.
And then my last question was, why can't this be 3 houses instead of 6?
Because the need is that great and the ordinances allow us to have 6. And we're trying to do what the town needs. I mean, the top 3 goals of the town's comprehensive plan have been for a very long time: increase the year-round population, support economic endeavors so we have a more vibrant economy locally, and provide more year-round workforce housing. And so we're trying to accomplish that and meeting all the ordinance guidelines. So this is what the town had said it wanted to do. That property had always been a year-round property. The property across the street had been, until its current owner, a year-round property. The property just down the street a little further on Neighborhood Road had been, Dick's Auto Body was up the street on the top of Gray's Lane not that long ago. So I think that there is a history of at least part of Neighborhood Road being a year-round community. And so we think that that's the appropriate way to do it. So we think that Neighborhood Road within a block of the elementary school is the right place to develop year-round housing.
Okay, and I just wanted to, can I just respond? I think that 5 years ago, and after the fires, it felt like Northeast Harbor was dying. I don't think that's the case anymore. We've had multiple businesses opening, the ice rink coming to town, the nor'easter coming in year round. I feel like there's a lot of hot button sort of terms that get thrown around to make summer residents, whose town this is also. This is not just a year-round town, it's also a town for summer residents too. And I feel like there's a spin tactic that's going around that's making it seem like if you don't support workforce housing, if you don't support this project, you don't support workforce housing.
Tracy, what's
Pardon
the
me.
question? What's the question?
Oh, sorry, I was just responding to Kathy's comment that the question was just, do you not think that we have achieved some vibrancy in this town in the last 5 years without these things? Okay.
There you go. There's the question, and we got to move on here because there's a lot of hands up. Yeah,
Can I make a comment?
absolutely.
I'm Martha Dudman, a year-round resident. I'd like to speak in support of the MD 365 affordable housing development. Which I see as a small but important step to restore year-round housing in the village of Northeast Harbor. In recent years, the housing stock has been depleted as seasonal residents have transformed year-round homes to summer houses, and investors have turned year-round homes into short-term rentals. Prices have increased, and the homes here are no longer affordable for people who work in our town, run our library, work in our schools, work in our town government, and keep us safe, like firefighters, people working in the ambulance, and policemen. Young families starting out can't buy a house here anymore. There are those who complain that this project will change the neighborhood. The neighborhood's already changed. As Kathy said, this was always a year-round neighborhood. Large houses have been built where there were once mostly modest regular houses on Summit Road, on Neighborhood Road, all around town. People have died or moved away. Those of us who still live here and those who want to live here and preserve our year-round community see this as a small but significant step. And I am grateful for the investment in our town. Thank you.
Right, so I'm gonna just move, we've heard from a couple people multiple times, and I just want to give some voice here to some of the people who have their hands up, who we haven't heard from yet. And Linda Jonas, you've been patiently waiting there.
Hi, Linda Jonas here. I heard this described as a land subdivision earlier in this presentation, and I would like some clarity on that. What is that as opposed to a subdivision? Because this is land that essentially is being subdivided. And would the requirements, how do you qualify for that? You know, can people in VR1 just do a land subdivision and have different ordinance requirements for size of, I don't know. I'm a little confused, so I'd really like to know more about that.
So the ordinance allows you to divide a land either by physically carving off the parcels, or the law for subdivision is by development. So if I go build 3 homes in a 5-year period, I trigger subdivision law. That's without physically dividing the property. Or should you go out and divide the property, 3 lots, create 3 lots in a 5-year period, that also triggers subdivision. So that is the same on either side of the fence. They're just different types of subdivisions, both recognized in the town's ordinance and the state's ordinance. For this particular parcel, if you, because it's 39,000 and change for size, if you divided that by the minimum lot standards in town, which is 10,000 square feet, you would come up with 3 10,000 square foot lots and a little bit left over. Every one of those lots by the ordinance could have a duplex on it. For a single lot at 10,000 square feet, the ordinance allows a 2-family dwelling. So you could divide it that way and have 3 lots, or you could just build 6 units on it. That's without even taking advantage of the 1.75 increase of workforce housing. So there's a perception of what, I don't want to go say what the maximum is, but You divide the land, but you also trigger it by subdivision and state law by developing. If you build 3 houses, so the standards apply the same either side of that. It's just a matter of how the ownership would be. One positive note, when we went through the planning, I'll bring to the next meeting. If we divided this up into 3 lots, one thing you would have is multiple driveways and people just deciding how to build. In this instance, where people are building the homes, you control where they park, control how the driveway will enter the property. If we divide it up into 3 lots, just sold it off. Sorry, Kathy, but if you just sold it off, people could build whatever they wanted for a house, wherever they wanted for it, and they would put driveways out any place they wanted to. And that would be the same in the instance they divided in 2. If we took the existing property and put 2 lots on it, and so that they wouldn't even be here for subdivision. So there's a form of control of planning that allows it, and it's just a different form of division. It has to be by development, by building the buildings themselves, we trigger subdivision. So hopefully that was short enough. Thank you.
All right. Miss Kelly, you've been very patient too.
Hi,
And
this is Betsy Kelly. We live on Neighborhood Road, and I'm going to follow up with what you just said about a form of control. I'm going to try to address the elephant in the room, and that is that MD 365 is a very unique organization, and I fully support the building of affordable housing in Northeast Harbor or parts of Maine, anywhere in Maine where people need to live close to their work. What I want to address is the fact that MD 365 is basically funded by one very, very wealthy benefactor. His museum here in Washington, D.C. has an endowment that is equal to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. When you drive by the impact that other billionaire philanthropists have had in Northeast Harbor and in Mount Desert, it's breathtaking. When you drive by the gatehouses, when you walk on the carriage trails, I challenge MD 365 to create workforce housing that is the most beautiful, that is the most elegant, that is just has the most civic pride that you could possibly imagine, and follow in the footsteps of the rest of the very generous people who have lived in and around Acadia National Park. I've never seen a master plan from MD 365. I know that there are really deep pockets there, and there is a definite fear that, you know, if Kathy Miller says there's a need for 600 workforce housing units, you could buy and sell 600 houses in Northeast Harbor. You know, there's just, the pockets are so deep, and the power and the control that MD 365 has is, or perceived to have, is very, very great. And I think that there's a real PR problem that is here, and it's pitting summer residents against year-round residents, and it's painful. I mean, in fact, this neighborhood has always been a mix of summer and year-round people who get along and who enjoy each other very, very much. And this project has been very divisive, and it's painful. So MD 365, please give the residents of Northeast Harbor a long-term strategic plan. How much money are you going to invest? Over what period of time? And what is your overall goal for our community? That's all I have to say.
that,
I don't think it was a question.
I don't think that was a question.
Okay, here's the question. MD 365, why haven't you published a long-term strategic plan for your organization?
I believe that we have made it clear and obvious, and it's been on our website, and we've shared it with lots of different people. The properties that we have acquired and what the possibilities are for developing those properties. And it includes properties on Main Street. If you were around this summer, you might have seen that we did have an event last July to talk about the possibility of 4 properties on Main Street where we could have 15 apartments, that most of which we would rent out. We have a property on Summit Road where we could have 2 homes there. We have other property on Neighborhood Road. We have stopped acquiring properties so we can develop properties that we do have. But our overall plan is to develop those properties. And we're trying to be careful and thoughtful about how we do it. But those are the numbers that I can give you, except for Neighborhood Road. The 3 contiguous properties that abut the elementary school. The ordinances would allow us, based on workforce housing, to develop quite a few. I don't know that we would do that many because it might be too much. But I can say that our long-term plan is to develop the properties that we have. And we've had that map out publicly for a long time.
Donna Reese, you've also been very patient. Do you have a question?
I think I'm next. I think I'm next.
No, actually, Lincoln, I called on you earlier and you didn't reply, and Donna was up at the same time, so I'm going to circle back to you.
Okay, let the record show that you've not allowed me to speak. Thank you.
You know what? Let Lincoln go. I can wait. I'm patient. Thank you. I'll go next.
There you go, Lincoln. You're up. Let the record show.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. I will have 2 questions. Not 3. But before that, I wanted to say,
Lincoln, there's a terrible echo on your end. Do you have like another device open, maybe?
is this any better?
No.
No.
Yeah, turn the reverb down.
Is this any better?
No.
Then unfortunately, I'll have to sign off. Thank you.
Do you want to
Call back.
call back?
Thank you.
He is. Donna, he's signing back in, so you're up.
Okay, hi. This is Donna Reese. I am a year-round resident and I'm a neighbor of the project. And I live off of Manchester Road on Indian Head Lane. I'm a year-round resident and I went to the site visit today and asked a lot of questions and they were all fully answered. And I felt very appreciative of all of the efforts that MDI 365 is doing. And I fully support year-round affordable housing. And I just wanted to make that comment and say thank you for all the hard work and how much attention and respect they've shown to all the residents of the town and to trying to keep it consistent and fitting in with the rest of the neighborhood. And it's beautiful. I'm very happy and I hope that it moves forward fully. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Milstein, are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
Much better. Yes.
Thank you. I only have 2 questions, but I did want to state, just for everybody's benefit, I write the Quiet Side Journal, which is well read, and I've read about this article, so everything here is on the record. I've written about Betsy, who spoke before me, and so I wanted to ask 2 things. Jay Haberman, who spoke earlier about the danger to the kids riding the bike in his neighborhood. Is Mr. Haberman a year-round resident, or is this family here just for the summer, and are those kids endangered year-round?
He's not replying.
I don't believe Mr. Haberman is replying to that question.
Okay, well, he made a point that kids riding the bicycle around that development would be endangered, and I just want to know how long.
Do you have a question for the applicant, though?
For MD 365?
Yes.
No, I haven't. I have questions for the people who replied to the applicant. Who, if this were a hearing or a trial.
So it's not a. So this
No,
is
this is a you invited comments, and several people make comments, and I like them. I'm asking questions to them. I like to ask the lady who asked about low income housing, and I'm not understanding what her concern is with low income housing and why she brought up low income housing, and so I wanted a clarity on that issue. What was her concern about? Why did she bring up low income housing, and what was her concern? And I don't know if she's still on there. Mr. Haberman's no longer on there.
Mr. Milstein, this is a sketch plan review of the applicant's project. You know, this isn't cross-examination of public, you know, and there's never been any history in the planning board of that occurring. So if you can focus your question to the applicant, I mean, we're all here to hear that, but we're not going to turn this into questions upon questions.
Yeah, you shut me off before, but that's okay. Let me ask Kathy then. What you were asked a question about low income housing. What was your understanding of the question?
Our project is actually more for median income housing folks. We would have a maximum cap consistent with Island Housing Trust of no family income, no more than 160% of the state median income. And the reverse of that is people have to make enough money that they can afford to buy a house. And part of the application process would be they have to demonstrate that they have worked with a lender and they are confident that they can secure funding to buy a house.
So what is your understanding of the question of low income housing? What is the definition of low income housing in your mind when you were asked that question?
Low income housing is generally about 50% of the median income or lower. And that's not what we're looking at as the audience that we're hoping to have in this housing. I think that sometimes people may throw out terms and may be confused about what it is they're doing, but thank you for letting me clarify. We're talking about median income workforce housing for people who live here year round.
Thank you very much, Kathy. But let me ask you then about Mr. Haberman's question when he said that it was unsafe for kids to ride around their bicycle. Do you know if Mr. Haberman was only concerned with summer residents or year-round residents? Do you know if there are a lot of year-round residents in that neighborhood who have kids who ride bikes?
I would never suggest what somebody else is thinking when they ask a question, but I will point out that as I was walking around town today to prepare for our site review, et cetera, I walked past the elementary school. And people who do not walk past the elementary school during the school day, they might not realize that right outside the building that has all of our children in there, there are cars lined up. It's all the teachers and the support staff and everybody else who is parking on the street. And there's a lot of traffic coming and going. And yet I don't know that I've ever heard of an incident with any of those cars hurting any of the children coming in, going out of school. So I think that people are aware that there are children, especially around a school. I think that they drive carefully and they take that into consideration. But I understand completely Jean Burden's comments earlier. Everybody drives too fast. I live in Soamesville and we've got flashing lights on both ends to tell people how fast they're going because everybody's going too fast. So it's a wide problem, town-wide, county-wide, countrywide. But I do think that in the villages here, I do see the people are a little slower and they do need to pay attention, so.
Thank you
We
very
also
much.
need-
Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna circle back. Just, Ines, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
Thank you so much. I just have a couple of quick questions. Are they actually, and I guess the answer is yes,
No
but
more than three.
I have three, but one of them super quick. So are they actually allowed to take down like every single tree on that whole lot in order to build this at density? I mean, I'm not contesting that we need workforce housing. I'm not contesting that we need the density. I just wonder, I'm also thinking about my own property. I was under the understanding that you could only take down like a certain amount of trees when you want to build. Am I just wrong on that?
I'm not sure if you're wrong. What I can say is there are several trees that are remaining on site and part of completeness. There are some apple trees in the corner that are remain. If you've ever looked inside there, yes, there are trees. Some of them are invasive, as maples, and so not all the trees remain cut down. We're happy to show you on the plan which ones are going to remain. But hopefully that answers your first question.
Okay, and then will the new buyers, I know that one objective and whatever is to build the school back up. It's the school I went to. I'm passionate about, having everybody have that. Are they going to have some sort of vetting or requirement that families who are purchasing these particular homes have children that are going to be school aged? If that's actually the objective, I don't know how that would work. And Bill, this one might be for you. Is there some kind of noise or building ordinance that would be enacted so that, like blasting at 7 a.m., all those other kinds of issues? Are any of those kinds of plans being thought about by the town?
Yeah, I can answer the noise and construction ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Questions. That's been a long standing question in the town. We currently don't have an ordinance for noise, and we don't have an ordinance for limiting construction time. It's come up multiple times through the years. We don't have anything in place right now for that, nor is there any planning for that, like through the Land Use Advisory Committee.
I would just speak to that for a moment, Bill, that normally I would say through this process, there's some unwritten rules on time of construction and startup. So that comment would allow us to maybe expand further, but typically, I'm just saying from prior interactions that there's no equipment moving starting until 8. They might be on site to, prep for the work. So in a sense, I think based on that question, we could probably come back with some more information on how that might be managed. That's normally on the permanent construction side, but we'll get some thought to it and come back with some more specifics.
And it's one thing about that too, is that, just experiencing construction in the villages, I do think it is a very human process, and that, if there are concerns about start times or noise or types of equipment, most of the GCs and trades around here will take that into consideration.
And actually, we have built that into contracts before.
Yep. Did you hear that, Ines?
Yes, thank you. Yep, I appreciate that sensitivity.
All right, so I'm gonna jump ahead to some of the other hands up here. Charlene, you've had your hand up for quite a while. Charlene Marshall, you're on.
Yep, thank you. Charlene Marshall. Yep, I just have a quick question for Kathy Miller. Can I get a copy of your annual report?
Yes, I'd be happy to send that to you.
Okay, great. You just send it to my PO box in Northeast Harbor.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
believe-
All right, that's it.
You do that.
All right, Mr. Kennedy, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, hi. I actually, and this, if I had to step away for 10 or 15 minutes, so.
Andrew.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, sorry. And so if this was already asked, then stop me in my tracks. I'm actually more interested in the profile of the person who actually, I guess, buys this home or these homes. So I understand it, and I know Kathy, you know, I've talked about this before, but so somebody buys this house, but there is a cap to which these homes increase in value. Am I right? Like, in other words, they don't, you know, obviously, you know, Northeast Harbor has at times gone through this sort of radical increase or appreciation in value. These homes are to stay affordable or capped. And I guess my question is, and I'm not asking because I'm deeply suspicious of it, I'm just curious about what the market has shown in other circumstances like this. Who are buying homes that don't really increase in value? I assume you're going to be putting these up for sale as opposed to them being rented. Am I right?
Correct. Yes, this is intended for home ownership. And we are following it almost exactly the guidelines that have been in place by Island Housing Trust for a couple of decades now. And there is a maximum price, a maximum sale price that is set. At the time that someone wants to sell their property, we would review what they bought it for, and then how it has increased over time. And that price would be relative to the median income for the state at the time that they sell. So you look at incremental changes in that, you know, percentage of increases over time. And that's how you would set the maximum price. There's no guarantee that it would sell for a maximum price, depending on the market. But there has certainly been a history of houses being sold for this. And I think if you ask Island Housing Trust, there is a waiting list for them on the houses that they already have. So yes, there are people who want to buy these houses.
And so in the experience of Island Housing Trust or other like-minded groups of like yours and others, you guys are newer to the block on this, but are people staying in these homes long-term, or do they typically stay for 2-3 years and then they leave? I'm curious to know what we would expect in the way of, you know, the people that actually move in, how long are they actually moving in for? And I guess my underlying point to this is, and you know, I mean, everybody's different, right? Some people take great pride in the rent that you know, for the home that they've rented for 1 year. My sense of it is people tend to take less pride in places where they think that they're going to be leaving soon. Okay, so I guess my question is the experience of this situation, you know, whether it's Island Housing Trust, is that people actually, you know, there's a medium period of time that people actually like stay in homes like this?
Yes, there is. We have two examples in the town of Mount Desert. Island Housing Trust created the development at Farnham's Way, and Steve Anastasia here was a homeowner there, and I think he can speak to that in terms of longevity. There are always people who might get in there and for one reason or another need to go, but there are many others who stay for a good long time. The other development that had caps on it and was developed as workforce housing is over in Seal Harbor. And that process started in the 80s. I think the houses got started in the 90s. And so far, only one home out of a dozen has changed hands. So I think that if it's a good community and people are feeling welcome and they have connections, that they stay a good long time.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You were going to comment.
Yes, we've got introduce yourself and please comment.
My name is Steve Anastasia. I'm a resident of the town of Mount Desert. I have a home in the Island Housing Trust subdivision in Soamesville. And to answer some of your questions, I am what a resident looks like. I work for the National Park Service. I go to work in the morning. I come home at night. I have 2 kids that go to school who come up through the elementary school and now are in the high school. The house is a long-term residence. It is something that we all want to do, is to stay in this community. The benefits of the house when I bought it, to me, was that I could afford to live on this island and I could be part of this community. What I had no idea about was how much that year-round residents and a year-round community would bring everybody together and create something that was not measurable by dollars, but was measurable by a quality of life that really is very hard to find in other locations. Related to what happens with the cost of housing. When I purchased my house in 2013 in that neighborhood, it was valued at $210,000. With inflation, changes in median income, changes in cost of building, changes in improvements that have been done by me as a homeowner, that house is now worth $330,000. So you're not stagnant in its value. You're not losing money. But what you're not creating is, you're not creating an investment that you're going to retire from, but you're creating a home that people can live in, that they can raise their kids in, and they can contribute to the town. Beyond being a resident, beyond being an employee of the National Park Service, I'm also a board member of the Soamesville Library. These are things that exist because I live in this town.
Okay, moving on to the other hands. Yes. Mr. Kennedy, are you done with your questions?
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate the response. Thank you so much, Kathy, and I've forgotten your name, but the other guy fellow. Thanks.
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you, Andrew.
Mr. Collins, you've had your hand up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darren Collins. I am a resident in Bar Harbor. If I would love myself to move into any one of those properties if I could. They look really fantastic. But maybe more importantly for this discussion, I'm the president of the College of the Atlantic here in Bar Harbor, which came up at least once so far tonight. And I know for absolute certain that another kind of person that would live in those properties would be COA faculty or staff. And as we are doing our own strategic planning over the coming years, we are seeing a long streak of retirements. And the most challenging thing I have as the president of the college is helping our new staff and faculty find housing. And the college was founded in the early 70s to help build community on Mount Desert Island. And I'm just so excited by the possibilities of this housing development. It will absolutely, without a doubt, make my life and the college's life a lot easier, attract really smart, thoughtful people. Imagine, a recent PhD, 29 or 30 years old, maybe with a young family, who's not making loads of money, but is a middle-class person who would be really, really excited and a really strong member of this community. And I just wanted to say that I'm love the design personally, aesthetically. Not everyone will. I know that whenever you build a building, not everyone's going to like it, but certainly in terms of the functionality and what we need on this island, from my perspective, I'm just so excited by this development. I just wanted to let everyone know that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Folke, you've had your hand up. Sorry.
No problem. Hi, I am a summer resident and live across the street, right at the intersection of Neighborhood House and Manchester Road. And my aunt and uncle, the Newlands, are next door. And we are having a generational shift where the older generation is aging and the younger generation is coming forward. And so I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having this be an open forum. And I'm sorry that I haven't been more involved. I thought the plans looked really lovely. I think, I have one question, just a little bit about noise and also about lighting. Like, I don't know if there's a lot of like public lighting or up lighting there, just as somebody who's going to be looking right at it at night. That's a very small question. And then I sort of wanted to just echo what Andrew asked about the profile of sort of who would be living here and how long would you envision them staying. And I think both Darren and others have said, this is highly desirable. One would hope that people would stay for, I don't know, 5, 10 years, or I don't know how long, but certainly like it'd be desirable to have long-term neighbors who are invested and that we all know and interact with and are part of the community over time. So one is a logistical kind of personal one about just the impact of noise and light directly kind of at us. And one is a more of a community question about, yeah, I mean, who would not, everyone would love to have more young families there. I mean, how could we not support that? But how, yeah, I agree that it is a question. How do you vet, like who vets? I don't know who vets who comes, like what is the criteria? Is it, you know, first come, first serve, or is there some other process? And this might all be written down and I just haven't read it. So I apologize if that has already been explained or it's in writing somewhere and you can refer me to it and I'll read that. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. It's Craig Johnston, the engineer with them. Specific to the lighting, we've talked a lot about that. The area lighting and the result of coming through the planning is really no site lighting. What we're talking about is lighting that's downward pointing on the residents only, no flood lighting to park for parking areas, not necessarily any bollards or anything at the entrance. It's really what you would see on the building up underneath the eaves of the porches and fully shielded on the side of the houses. So there's no direct visibility to the light bulb, but no area site lighting sort of for like parking lots and stuff, all associated with the dwellings.
I'm going to add to that, that our land use ordinance probably has one of the most specific lighting ordinances of any municipality around here.
Yeah, on the profile of people, it is our hope as well that people would.
Who's
once they
talking?
Kathy Miller.
Thank you.
It is our hope also that once people buy this home, that they would want to stay forever. That it's a great neighborhood to be in and to be able to walk to school, to walk to Main Street, et cetera. So we would like to have people stay as long as they can, as long as they want to. And the criteria don't kick people out because they're no longer working. There are criteria for when you purchase the home. It is income-based. You have to be able to afford it, but you can't make so much money that you don't need help and our workforce housing. It has to be your primary residence on a year-round basis, no renting it out, and you have to abide by the covenants, which include resale covenants. So when the house is ever sold, it's going to go to someone who is the same kind of eligibility. Now, what those profiles are, how we're selecting. We have toyed with this idea about saying we would give a priority to people in certain kinds of occupations. But as time has gone on, all occupations have great needs. And so just, there's a joke going around, don't get fired by your plumber because you might not find a replacement. And so not only do we need firefighters, well, actually, we're building a $5 million building because we didn't have firefighters that could be close enough here. So the town is spending a great deal of money so that we can have people in place on a 24/7 basis because we couldn't count on them otherwise. So the need for public servants or public safety might be reduced because the town is accommodating that. But all kinds of other people, I know I'm sorry, but I'm a regular Bar Harbor Bank and Trust person. If anybody knows Lisa Parsons, she was stuck in the Northeast Harbor branch here for months because they couldn't have just one person in the bank and the other person who had been there for years moved on. So banks need them, plumbers need them, carpenters need help, everybody needs help. So our thinking is we want to set a date for when applications would be accepted and that we get word out as wide as we can so that people can prepare themselves and go speak with a lender and make sure that they are going to be able to finance something. And then it would be on a first come, first served basis.
Mm-hmm. And is 6 units, 6 really meeting the need? It seems like not a lot.
It's a drop in a big bucket, the drop in the ocean. And as I don't know if you heard me say, we do have other property elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And we, once we're through this process and we learn as we go, we will start moving on to the next one and the next one. And we know that beyond a huge need for ownership, there is a perhaps even greater need for rental apartments and or rental homes. And so we hope to do some work on Main Street as well. So
Year round.
year round, absolutely. Only year round. Everything we do is going to be year round. Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Ryerson, you've had your hand up for a while. You're up. Joseph Ryerson. Going once.
That's all right, I got it. I got it.
Welcome
Thank you, Mr.
aboard.
Hanley. Joseph Ryerson, summer resident, if nobody has figured that one out. Got 3 questions. One is a 2-parter, but it applies to the sketch. Where's the buffer strip?
We would have, the buffer strip would be a combination of greenery, trees, plantings, as well as a fence. You know, the existing fence between our 2 properties that runs along our side of our driveway. We would replace that and extend it further. So that's the buffer strip we're talking about, as well as greenery around other places on the neighborhood road side of the property and along the back. So it's greenery. Trees, screening.
Yeah. Well, I see on the sketch, there are very nice little foundation plantings, but that's not, I think, what a subdivision ordinance anticipates for a buffer. The second part of that question, on the sketch, down the south end there on what you call your right of way, there's a little pull-in, it looks like. And there's a note that there's a double wide 8-foot gate. What's that all about?
You would, if we have a fence along there, we would have a gate opening up so that people from the property can exit that way or enter that way if they're walking around town. So it's not for vehicles, it's just for pedestrian traffic.
I'd like to just add to that, well done. Also, we forget that there's a right of way there, but they still own it, right? They still have the right to access their property. The fee ownership underneath there belongs to the Hill parcel. So the ability that would go through a fence to get there, I don't know if there's any maintenance. I can imagine the abutters maintain it now, but they have the right to get in there. It's their property.
Well, is it, on the one hand, I hear you saying pedestrian, and on the other hand, I see an 8-foot gate. That's sort of wide for anybody.
Yes.
So I assume it's going to be, what?
Since this is a sketch plan review, it's
Right.
helpful to get those comments. And so when we put in our final application, we should review that.
Well, okay, good. Now, moving on to the second question, Mr. Hanley, I hope you'll be satisfied. What happens if a person who has moved in here loses their job? You throw them out?
That homeowner, like any other homeowner, if they have a mortgage, I think they're working it out with their bank. We are not
Okay.
throwing somebody out. They're the homeowner. They can stay there as long as they wish to and can afford to.
Okay, thankfully they're alive. Now suppose they retire.
We wouldn't,
Same
correct, even when they retire, it's workforce to get people in there. It's
So-
not a requirement that you're working. So no, we would not be throwing anyone out if they retire.
So you build 12 family, workforce family units. And somewhere down the road, whatever. And somewhere down the road, these become retirement homes. They're not workforce anymore. What's the point?
They maintain their affordability for people who have worked until they retired. And now those people can continue to live in the house they've owned for however long.
You know, they can continue to live in it, but the question is, they're not working. And there are people who need workforce housing, we assume in the future. So you got a person not working in a workforce house. and a person who is working that needs a workforce house, it kind of seems like eventually these just become houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know who you are. Oh, it's Milsey. Well, all right. So and then when you die, Kathy,
Yes, well,
All right,
You can't kick somebody out. You
Of their
don't
home.
own it.
No.
They own it.
they own it.
You have control over the resale. That's the
Right.
point. If you have any
Right.
control.
so basically, once you're in, you're in. And the workforce,
own it.
and the
Yes,
workforce aspect of it, then it just becomes an ordinary single-family house, or if you're in a duplex.
correct.
Okay. well,
Single, a year-round home.
Well, yeah, you're right.
We would not lose that criteria that they need to stay in there year-round.
What was
So
that,
I'm
6 months in a day?
Year-round, 11 months. You don't get
Okay.
vacations, but
What do you do with somebody who doesn't do that?
I think that if they're no longer living in the home year-round, they're not eligible to stay. And at that point, they would have to sell it, and we would have a right of first refusal and work with them through the process to make sure that another eligible homeowner can buy it.
So you would kick them out.
If they are not abiding by the covenants that they
Right,
signed
right,
on to
right.
begin with, right?
By the way, can we see that covenant in advance?
At some point, it's not a part of this process, and I don't
No, I
believe that
understand
for
that. No, I understand.
subdivision, will that be a part of the requirement that they see that? I'm not sure.
Well, there's a lot in the back end of the subdivision ordinance about capacity of the organization to sustain itself and it has to, whatever. All right, last part, Bill.
Go for it.
All right. I heard, Mr. Anastasia is working for the government. He lives in Farms Way, I think. He's not working in Northeast Harbor. He's working for the government. That's fine. These houses, are they going to be limited to people who are going to be working in Northeast Harbor so as to revitalize Main Street so that they're buying their lunch, their coffee, their snacks, their groceries, etc.? Or is it going to be just for anybody that works on the island anywhere?
Part of the goal of this whole effort is to bring back a more robust year-round population. And we would not have in there a requirement that people work in Northeast Harbor in order to be able to work there.
It's becoming quite obvious. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. All right.
You
so-
have a requirement to work on the island. Island Housing Trust.
They do have that.
Right.
And we have not set that in stone yet. There are, as things have changed, how many people are working from their home now? And is that considered working on the island? Yes,
That's
it
true,
is,
yeah.
so, but I know too, I've lived in my house for over 30 years. Half the time I worked in Ellsworth.
Mhm.
But I was still here. My children went to the school. I was involved with the PTO, been on the warrant committee for a long time. So we had not set that same requirement as Island Housing Trust.
Perhaps you should have a requirement that you've got to leave the house and go do plumbing, police work, fire work, etc.
It might be, you were asked how you pick people, and I guess my experience with the Island Housing Trust, they certainly wouldn't kick anybody out because they lost their job on the island and moved to Ellsworth, but it would be a priority to, of your pool of applicants, the people who have jobs on the island would get higher priority than somebody that worked in Ellsworth or Bangor.
Yeah, and Island Housing Trust's criteria is like 20% of their household income.
Exactly.
Has to from working.
Okay, so here we are at 8:33 in the evening. And we are making our way through the sketch plan review process. And the planning board has had a long-standing 9 o'clock cutoff for hearings. And so I'd like to think we could still aim at the 9 o'clock cutoff. We've got 5 hands up still, and just want to remind everybody too that, you know, the subdivision review process is a multi-step process. We're going to be going into completeness, compliance, and at the end of the process, we have a public hearing, essentially another public forum on it. So this tonight is by no means the last night to be heard. And
Yeah.
So
Oh, really?
yes. So
Really?
really, I can guarantee that. And so let's wade through the last couple of hands here, and I'll be mindful of what time it is. So Ms. Burden, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yes, I was just gonna make.
I think I have my hand raised. before.
And guess what, Lincoln, you're next.
Thank you.
I was just gonna make a couple of positive comments and observations from my own experience. The worries about the density and also the lack of trees, the taking down of trees. Our property is an example. It's under 4 acres. We have 5 buildings on it. And we have a lot of trees still. So I think if you have to take them down for building, you can put them back. It took a while. We had a fire on one of the buildings, and we had to put trees back a few years. But I think that you can really, the other comment about quality and making it, it's the design of it. You can do a lot in a small amount of space. And with trees, of course, we'll have to take a few down to build these other structures. But I think that with our property being under 4 acres and 5 buildings, and we've got so many trees. And the other one is having grown up in Marblehead, Massachusetts, which is also highly in the old town, very dense. Again, a wonderful ambiance. And so I just think that those worries can be overcome. End of comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milstein, you're up.
Mr. Chairman, you and the planning board has shown an incredible tolerance tonight for questions about the kind of applicants who will occupy these units and their profiles. At least 3 or 4 speakers have gone on for at least half hour questioning the profiles of the people who would occupy these units. I'd like to ask Kathy and maybe the board to tell the public whether you even have the authority and whether land use zoning ordinances allow you the purview to qualify applicants and residents who can occupy these units. And if so, what is the mechanism to do that? As Mr. Ryerson brought up about somebody who can't pay their bills, isn't that a bank's job? And does the planning board have even authority? Or is that your intent to qualify and profile applicants? Is that a consideration of how you're going to consider this application for land use ordinance? Thank you.
So I'm going to pass that question to Kathy.
Of course you are.
Okay, well, I don't know that the planning board does have that kind of authority, but we've debated this ourselves. And I've looked at models across the country, and some communities do say they have a scoring mechanism. And if you meet certain criteria of things that are needed in the community, you get higher points and you move up on the application list. Other places, and Island Housing Trust is one, is that, you know, you can fall into such a minefield of problems if you're picking and choosing winners and losers, because there is such a finite number of opportunities. How can we say that a fireman is more important than a nurse? How can we say that a teacher is less important than a plumber? And so for that reason, we are coming to believe more along Island Housing Trust's view of this, to say all of these positions are needed. As a community, we need all of those positions and more. And so rather than picking and choosing, we want to make sure that we make it as widely known that these houses are available as possible. Give people the time to prepare their application and then take a first come, first serve when people are eligible. So our qualifications would be, do you meet the income caps? Do you agree with the covenants? And are you able to finance this? So it's a relatively limited number of eligibility criteria. We don't want to make it onerous, and it does apply for when you purchase the home, and then it is your home, and we would never intend to kick someone out unless they are not abiding by the covenants.
Yeah, but the question is for the planning board, is a profile of an applicant, and I don't even know what profile means. Is that a consideration on whether you approve the application?
So I can say, Mr. Milstein, that the planning board has a very specific checklist we go through, and profiles of residents is definitely not on that checklist.
No, but since we are applying under the workforce housing subdivision criteria for density, we want to make sure that that is applied. And so that would be demonstrated in our application to you in terms of that kind of criteria.
I would also just like to
They have
say that
jurisdiction on that.
I think a large part of the planning board is generally to build happy communities, that people put up a fence or build a garage, and the planning board is the opportunity for the neighbors to come and have a mediated conversation about how to all live together. And so the fact that we're hearing people's concerns about what Kathy's organization is doing, she's trying to benefit our community and do something, and we're giving the whole community an opportunity to weigh in on their concerns. This is what we do. We let everybody express their concerns and listen to them and try to come up, have plans that to the best possibility makes everybody happy. So to hear how Kathy's going to make sure that this is building our community to a concern that everybody's expressed, I think is well worth our time to let people ask those questions and have confidence that this project will develop a long-term community and isn't going to end up just being more short, cheap way to get seasonal rentals or something like that. There's a benefit to our community, and that needs to be heard. It may not be in our ordinance and specifically a criteria, but it is actually what we do a lot of the time.
Who's speaking?
This is Meredith Randolph.
I'm gonna move on. Lincoln, do you have another question?
I'm all set. Thank you so much for your opportunity.
All right.
This is Dave. You've got this Sam. I don't think he's had a chance. He said
Thanks, Dave. And he was next on the list. Mr. McGee.
Hi, Bill. Can everybody hear me okay?
Hi.
Can hear me just fine. Thank you. So just a few quick comments. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness of tonight's conversation and the patience of this committee, hearing all the different perspectives. I'm personally very much in support of this. I'm a year-round resident of the community. I've also had times when I've lived away. But I feel like this is a very small step towards creating some more year-round housing opportunities in our community, both for the village of Northeast, for the broader town of Mount Desert, and the island as a whole. And I would encourage us all to not let perfect be the enemy of good. I think it's going to take more than just this project to help ameliorate an ever shrinking supply of year-round housing options. I don't know if affordability is going to be there for my Jen's and my children if they ever wanted to become homeowners. And so the viability of continuity of our communities and generations of people that might want to live here year round is really at risk. So I'm very much in support of that. My other comment, though, is that even if I found this project distasteful or there was some aspect of it I didn't like, I I think we all need to respect the rule of law. We have a town building code. And my feeling is that private property owners should have the rights to do within reason on what they want to with their properties. And so long as what they're doing is legal, I think that we should respect that, you know, both respect the rule of law and the zoning ordinances that we have in the town, as well as respect one another's private property rights to peacefully use our properties as we see fit. So, you know, with that, I would just hope that we can find more solutions for year-round housing in our communities and keep this conversation going, and I'm very much in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stiles.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric Stiles, President and CEO of Friends of Acadia. I just want to offer that we are working closely with MD 365 and Island Housing Trust. We did submit a letter recognizing that a bunch of diverse employers from Jackson Lab, MBI Hospital in Birch Bay, Friends of Acadia, College of the Atlantic, Land and Garden Preserve, and many others, we recognize that this is a fundamental challenge that we're facing as employers. We applaud this effort and this application, not speaking or endorsing the specific project, but I can say that my personal experience as MD 365 is a high caliber organization with great integrity, and recognize that this is an urgent matter, not just for Mount Desert, but for the entire island and our community. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your consideration of this matter, and just want to reference the letter that was provided to the planning board yesterday. Thanks for your consideration, and thanks for the great discussion this evening.
Thank you. Is the chair allowed to ask a question? So one question was, I've had, you know, as you know, we have our office on Neighborhood Road and have renovated plenty of buildings in the village, and having worked, you know, on the island for 27 years as an architect, you know, I've been keenly aware that buildings have finite lives, and the mission of MD 365 and providing housing is, of course, it's got to be in perpetuality. It's got to continue. It's got to be sustainable. It's got to march through the test of time. And we haven't really gotten there yet. And it's not the planning board's purview to regulate aesthetics or construction type, but a question I have is, you know, in pairing with the organization's mission of the sustainability of the project, you know, have you considered the construction type of these structures to meet that goal? You know, some construction types have shorter lives than others, and how are you thinking about what you're building relative to it standing the test of time?
It did take us quite a while to find the right house, because I don't know if you recall this, but years ago, we worked with somebody to design some houses for our other much smaller lot on Summit Road, and went out with some good plans for, they were intended to be affordable to build. So a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, simple construction, solid construction. And we put those out for RFPs. We contacted lots of different builders on the island and a few off the island. We only got 2 responses back. And the prices then, and this was in 2018, were $400,000 and $500,000 per house. So it was just untenable for the market that we're looking at. So we made the decision then to go with modular. And we looked at a lot of different modular companies, and we've heard horror stories about some. The house is not getting built, poor quality, arguments with the builders. It's just a bad experience altogether. And so, and because, from the first get-go, we're like, if we're going to have a duplex here, I want that house to look like it fits into the neighborhood. And so it took us a long time to find this house. So we have found a company in New England that I think their design aesthetics are great. I think that they look like the houses belong here. I think it's a good company. They have wonderful reviews. I went out and did a tour of the factory. They pay a lot of attention to energy efficiency and energy use. And they have a whole line of homes that are, zero energy homes. And and this company also, they have developed a relationship with people on Nantucket. And so a lot of the homes that they build, some that I saw in their factory floor, were headed towards Nantucket. And so the standard of construction, they're using the same materials, they adhere to all the same building codes that you would find here. They exceed a lot of those codes because the modules are traveling down the road, and in that case, on a barge across water. They have to be well built to withstand all of that. We would also be working with a local builder to put them together and finish them up. And so we have trust in the people that we would be working with here to make sure that things are in the right order. We're not actually legally allowed to buy a building directly from a vendor. We have to go through a builder to do that. And so we would be working with somebody that we know and trust to be the general contractor, the groundwork and the development, and then to finish off the houses once they are put in place. So nobody wants to buy a house that's going to last 10 years and fall apart. A lot of that, the materials are the same that you would use in a stick-built house. And it is in part the maintenance. You have to keep an eye on things. You have to make sure it's well built to begin with, and then maintain it properly through the life of the house, like any house, any investment. But I think that you'll see so many more modular houses coming along, and builders have told me, get what you can built somewhere else because getting crews here is impossible. Mount Desert Island is the most expensive place to build anything, according to some people. So I think that we've made the decision that modular is the way to go. And as we have seen prices increase, availability of crews be reduced, it just cements the idea that this is the right way to go. And so we wanted to make sure that we had the right builder and the right models in mind. And so I'm you never know until it's done, but I think that we have done the work to find the right houses aesthetically and the right builders in terms of ability, capability, integrity in there. This is a family operation, but they've been around for quite a long time. So we get a good reputation.
Thank you. 7 more minutes.
It's okay to stop early.
Yeah, so let's see, let me just kind of poll the planning board here too and see if you guys have any more questions of the applicant at the sketch plan stage. And
I do.
no. And where's Dave? Dave, how are you doing?
He's over there.
Dave,
I'm still there.
still there?
Yeah, I think the discussion has answered all of my questions. I can't think of much. I've learned a lot from what's been said.
Mhm.
You just ask if anybody with their hand up actually has a question or if they are all.
Yes, does anybody with their hands up actually have a question or are they comments? So, yeah, Miss Kelly, question?
Yes, Betsy Kelly, I do have a question. Can Kathy share the name of the modular home company?
You knew that was gonna be asked.
We have not entered into any contracts with anybody yet, and I'd rather not share, actually.
Okay.
I don't want anybody to get to them before I do, so.
Mr. Ryerson, do you have a question? We've got 6 minutes.
Oh, I don't need 6 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Anastasia said something about his house was worth $330,000 or something like that now. How is that affordable housing if he has to sell it? Can only sell it to someone who meets the AMI threshold. Is that 330,000 just sort of a pie in the sky number? Kathy, I guess.
The rate at which they are, that the houses, so he bought it at a certain price and it's allowed to increase at the rate of income, the rate at which people's incomes
Plus
go
he's
up.
improved the building.
Yeah.
So he
He's
has
improved
added
the
things on to his building
He
as
has.
well.
But he would not get them out if he has to sell it at the AMI.
Yeah, that's a Island Housing Trust question, and he's actually left for the evening.
Okay.
But thank you. Ines, final question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just reading some of the comments in the chat, which you said not to, Bill, but some people have made comments. And my question is just to everybody, if it would be possible to not reduce this to a summer resident versus year-round community issue. I've never heard one person not be in support of workforce housing. We all want the same thing. Tonight was just supposed to be questioning this particular project. And I think it's okay to question. That's what Meredith said. That's the whole point of a planning board. And I think it's okay to question a grand plan and density in any one given area. I think that questioning would have happened wherever it was. The fact that this piece happens to be surrounded by mostly summer residents at this point, I think is actually irrelevant. And as a former year-rounder, and I grew up with almost everybody in that room, and two of the men, working on the proposals, went to high school with me. And I don't feel like I'm a summer resident, and I don't think that I should be categorized as sort of this summer resident who doesn't know what it requires to run a town. What I know is that it requires taxes, and that my piece of waterfront property has an exponentially higher tax rate. So I just we're all on the same page nobody is not in support of workforce housing.
All right, thank you. Mr. Milstein, you are the last of the evening, and it's 8:58.
Well, I didn't ask to speak again, but I think a considerable
Oh,
amount
you
of,
have your hand up.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to have that, but I just want to say that a considerable amount of this meeting was concerned with the profiles and the quality of people who would occupy these units. And I don't think that's the purview of the planning board.
Thank you for your question. All right. We are gonna wrap this up.
Great idea. I make a motion to, hold on, what are we doing?
Well,
Are we
let's,
just adjourning or-
well, let's see. Well, they're gonna come back for completeness next.
Oh,
And, that'll all be on the agenda when they decide to come back.
Do we need to vote on anything? No.
You don't need to
No.
vote on anything. We don't need any findings on anything. This was just the first kind of discussion about.
Not unless you want to see additional stuff that they didn't provide.
And sometimes that comes up during completeness, we just need some more information about something. So next time we're gonna be drilling down through the whole checklist. Sure. And then, so I think we're all set on this one for right now. And let me ask on item 5 under other, is there any other tonight?
May I ask one question?
Yes.
And about this, when we put in our application, do you feel that you need to have what the homeowners association information looks like, what the eligibility criteria is? Do you need any of that legal documentation?
I'm gonna refer you to the land use ordinance and the checklist within it.
All right.
So is there any other? Dave,
Now he's over there.
where's Dave? Dave.
The-
Dave, do you have any other? Do you have,
No, I'm all set.
hey, any idea on a motion you might want to put out there?
I'm making a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor, Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
myself, William Hanley, aye. Thanks to everybody for their cooperation and patience, and see you at the next hearing.
Thanks to the planning board.